Hello, everybody. What's going on? Happy Wednesday to you. Let me tell you something. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, as Mr. Rogers would say. The weather is nice. I hope you're all enjoying your day. If you aren't, um, got to do some soul searching on your own behalf because right now, listen, whoever your higher power is, you better believe in them and get you through whatever you're dealing with. We got to keep the energy positive. And also with that saying, got to have real talk all the time. Tonight, I'm going to dedicate this show to a detective that I had the pleasure of working with in Bronx Narcotics. Uh, Detective Michael Dye, he transitioned. And just to give you a little brief synopsis of Mike, I think he was instrumental in changing the mindset of a lot of people in Bronx Narcotics. Mike was a gay individual, he was a gay man, and he did not care that you knew if he was gay or not. A lot of times he didn't let society put him in a box where he had to hide who he was so for your acceptance. He did not at all do that. And I think he came in Bronx Narcotics on some what. And I applaud him. I salute him. And I'm just going to tell you a little story of how I gave him a nice tribute today on social media, but I'll just recap it because tonight I'm dedicating this show to him. Is that, you know, when you're not what society says you're supposed to be, um, people have problems, especially within law enforcement. Like gay is not acceptable. You know what I'm saying? Or if you're a gay woman, if you want me to, can I date? Can you hook me up with girls? And, things of that magnitude, and it becomes playful. You know what I'm saying? But to be gay is not acceptable. Like with Kevin and I, we work with a guy, awesome cop, Kevin Mellett, right? Didn't care if you knew he was gay. Remember Kev? You know what I'm saying? And if he had to go out on patrol, he'd get to kicking ass just like everybody else. But he let you know who he was, and it's individuals like him and Mike Dye that I applaud and I enjoyed working with uh, Kevin Mellett. Um, Mike was as we call in the African American community, we call a buppy. You know, educated black man, articulate, a la like if you watch the Fresh Prince of Bel Air, like Carlton, he had that kind of zest, that overtone, and he came in narcotics because a lot of times, for those who don't know, that's the way Bronx narcotics, that's the way narcotics is with NYPD. They use people of color to purchase drugs, and they think that that's all you're good for. I went down that path like so many others, and then there are a lot of white officers that really go down that path too, but not asking of them, they are kind of coddled. It's facts. It's real talk, and I'm talking facts. I dare anybody to question what I'm saying anytime, anywhere, and and not that the white officers asked to be coddled, but it's an excuse. Well, you're white, so you can't buy drugs. Oh, so they kind of give them easy assignments. And we're going to do a show on that. And that's real talk. And Kevin, and we could talk about that. But for African Americans and Latin officers or any other officers, you're expected to do that. Like, wait a minute, you can't buy drugs. Like, oh shit, like wait a minute, you're black. You know what I'm saying? You're Spanish. And Mike like just like myself, I had to find my niche when it was time to when I was doing undercover work because I didn't have a rough exterior. I didn't have a, and Kevin knows this terminology when we say a scale energy looking terminology. I wasn't that dude. I wasn't dressing down and all that. And it dressed down, it just wasn't working. So I found my niche and then I did what I was supposed to do to get my shield and transition into a ghost, which was my niche, investigator. With that being said, Mike, very articulate, Connecticut. You might as well say suburban individual. Uh, was trying and he couldn't find it. Couldn't find it at all. But when we were going out, because he was gay and outwardly letting you know he was gay, we were going out to work together that day, and we were in the car, and the people in the car were, like it was a little tension because guys may say like, "Oh shit, look at that girl's ass over there," or this and that. I'm gonna go see this girl tonight. I'm gonna do that. Da, da, da. That conversation wasn't flowing like that, you know. And so, me being me, unbeknown to me, real talk was already embedded in my system and who I was. I'm like, yo, I don't have time for this. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, yo, dude, like I know everybody's just the stress signal. Like, I'm the ghost, that, whatever. Like, what's your distress signal if somebody's beating your ass? Are you gonna be like, oh my God, get him off me? You know what I'm saying? And everybody in the car is like, oh no, this dude didn't do this. Like we all EEO, okay, like we all getting like modified and jammed up. And without a beat, a second didn't go off that clock. He was like, nah, I'm gonna be like, oh my God, keep him on me. I'm gonna hold him, I'm gonna hug him, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And we started laughing, and it was just the greatest of icebreakers that we could have had in that car. And it was like, wow. So we now we're working, everybody has good energy and we're talking. Later on, I come to find out that he's having problems trying to purchase drugs. And this job will threaten you. Oh, we'll send you back to patrol and we'll do this and we'll do that and things of that magnitude. And we're like, yo, he's like, yo, Bill, what do I have to do? Like, what? Like, he's like, yo, I'm kind of so on my brain. And like I said, I won't divulge too much what I told him to do here because you never know who's listening, and I still want to protect the privacy of undercovers out here that's still doing what they have to do. But I gave him something, and he took it and he ran with it, and he became a consistent buying machine. And it was just so good to see that he listened. And I never forget when they were having undercovers talk to the chiefs and stuff like that, Kevin. And he really, even though I was on the map, but he put me on the map because he would go in front of chiefs and talk about, listen, if you want a prototype ghost, then Bill Forster is your dude. Because I got into a situation, a life-threatening situation, and he showed up like Jason Bourne, and I'm just paraphrasing for those that know who Jason Bourne is. And I did what I did, and he was like, "Yo, he has like schooled me all through narcotics up into being an investigator." And he said, "These are the kind of ghosts that when you want us to go out here and purchase drugs and buy weight or buy guns or whatever it is that you want us to do and put us in situations." he's like, this is the kind of ghost that needs to be here and teaching it. And I didn't know that until other undercovers in that meeting came to say, yo, like Mike kind of bigged you up. And I was like, really? What happened? He was like, yo, he was just saying that, yo, you're the prototype ghost. You're the ghost that we need. So I just felt like uh, I just wanted to pay tribute to him and know that, let him know, he's in God's hands. Of course, we all are in certain venues, but he was such a good man, and I can, this real talk episode is contributed to him tonight, and I salute Mike Dye. What's up, Kev? How are you, man?
Hey, Bill. Good evening.
Yeah.
I like to just say I wish I would have known him.
Yeah, definitely,
Sounds like
man.
that kind of man.
Yeah, let me tell you something. Some, you know, some people think what they want to think, but this was the dude that put up a post, like his calendar of guys in his cubicle. And and Kev, you know what I'm saying? Like this is not new. This is different for like cops. Cops supposed to be macho and we here to save the world, and he got guys, in thongs standing up, all greased up. Like, this is Mr. May and Mr. January and Mr. February. And Cats is like, oh my God. Like, and it was so funny. And he was like, yo, I dare y'all to say something. He really was. He was like, I dare you to say something. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I have never worked, even Kevin, when we worked with Kevin Mellick, right?
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't outwardly like that. You know what I'm saying? Like you knew he was gay. We knew that, but it wasn't like he was telling you like, I dare you. And you're not, I dare you and I'm going to jam you up. Like, I dare you to say something. What? You know what I'm saying? Like, so, what's up, everybody? This is Real Talk Chronicles. I was just trying to share something. Junior Blake is in the building. He said, sounds like Kevin that used to be work in the 2-8 with us. Yes, that is Kevin. That is Blake. That is Kevin Mellett that I was talking about. He was a righteous dude, man. So, I shout out to all the LGBT community. Shout out to anybody that stands up for what they believe in. No matter who you are, who you are, what you believe in, the fact that you can speak up. Because let me tell you something: when you take that front run, that position, it is very hard because people want to throw darts at you, and they're gonna aim at they're gonna put you in, they're gonna make you the bullseye. And if you're not built for that, then shame on you. Listen, I say so many different things that a lot of people in law enforcement they don't like, but they can never say I slept on them. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I am who I am as an African American man, and I will never denounce that. I think I wish a lot of people were true to the blood that runs through their veins or their heritage or their ethnicity. I think this world would be a better place. I think law enforcement would be a better place. But well, people are who they are. People want to get along, go along more than they want to stand individually, and that's a shame. Like Kevin, I will applaud you. I always tease you, like I said, yo, you're gonna lose friends every time you come on Real Talk Chronicles and co-host with me because you are not the typical white guy that comes out and and no matter what you feel, you're about right and wrong. You understand what I'm saying? We talk about what you see and how you feel about things, but you have no problem still coming here and taking the arrows. Like, elaborate on that aspect, please. You know what I'm saying?
Look, Bill, I've always enjoyed the conversation, and you don't learn unless you're willing to engage, and you have to be willing to engage in uncomfortable conversations. And 25 years ago, we had these conversations privately. Yeah. Today, we have them publicly. But, you and I have had these conversations a long, long time ago. I've always been curious, right? I always want to understand the why of things. I want to understand why, as a black man, you see something different than I see it.
Yeah.
You know? And there'll be times I'll sit back and go, oh, that completely makes sense. And there'll be time I go, I still don't get it, you know? And we even had that discussion at the end of last week by ourselves or the weekend on, you know, and this kind of segues into some things today, but understanding the voting laws that are being put out there in the complaints about them, right? I don't understand and needed to do a little reading on. I don't see the big deal in asking for ID to vote, right? I don't see how that pushes it aside any sector of this world. You know, and I hit you with that question. Like, I'm like, Bill, you got to explain this to me. I don't know.
And that is going to be one of the hot topics of our discussion tonight. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host Kevin Branzetti. This is Real Talk Chronicles. If you're watching it from YouTube, subscribe to it, push the thumbs up. If you watch it from Facebook, share it, let people know. I got my man in the building, Amir Sealy. You got your own thing going on too. I appreciate you. If you want to come in tonight, let me know. Text me. I'll send you the link and have you come in and you can chop it up with us tonight. A shout out. What's up, Alfreda? How are you, sister? Mark is in the building. Stephanie is in the building. Junior Blake, of course, is in the building. Shout out to everybody watching. I see you, B. Wash, but shout out to all the people that are in watching it. You know, we appreciate you. Thank you. Like I said, tonight I'm dedicating this show to my man, fellow narcotics ranger. Michael died, who transitioned due to cancer. You know, as some people can say, F cancer, absolutely. You know, I just like, thank you for helping me all express my emotions in his transitioning, because when I asked him, like, when I heard out that he had some kind of terminal cancer, I reached out to him and I was like, yo, you want to talk about it? And he was like, nah, I don't want to talk about it. And I never talked about it since that with him until the day he's passed away. And it is what it is. But I had to respect that. But like Kevin is talking about, let's talk about these voting rights. So Republicans, the governor in Georgia signed a bill for voting rights. Kevin and I we're going to put up the things that he did. We're going to listen to some clips and things like that, and we're going to open this discussion up so we can have real dialogue. Because let me tell you something. I put up a post recently and I said, this is not about fraud. It's about people of color voting. And, you know, it's so funny, Kevin, it's not about having ID to vote. But the thing is, now all of a sudden you want to put this in law after you lose your whole state. Now your state is blue. If you felt this way, why didn't you put this in the law when 45 was in office? You know what I'm saying? So we're going to talk about this. Amir, the voting rights are only an issue because they had turnout not expected by the Republicans. Absolutely, Amir. Amir, text me if you want to come in real quick. I got you. Darren Joseph and Kevin, the problem is that they are implementing these laws just because that racist who used to occupy the White House lost. Exactly. Stephanie, making it illegal to give it out while people wait for hours. Yeah, okay. So yeah, Kevin, you know, you got people that really want to talk about this.
Yeah, and I do. So, Bill, like, you know, I sent you a couple articles. I'm trying to figure it out. Like, I get the history, right? And that's
the Jim Crow history.
The Jim Crow history, right? And shame on the New York City public school education system for not teaching me that, right? That's a number one in this. I get the history of that. I also get the history of you know, the fear of vaccines and doctors, all of this. But I still don't understand So I did pulled a couple of articles, fact checking what's actually in the law. And I think, Stefania makes a comment about, can't give it out while people are waiting for hours. I think she's talking about the water and food. There is a rule in there now because people are waiting online for 5-6 hours. It's not that they can't give out water and food. That absolutely can. And you can do a couple of, Google it. You can fact check it. It's that they're trying to, in my understanding of reading this, stop people they don't want Republican operatives and Democratic operatives standing online giving out water, pressing people on who to vote for, right? That's always been a standard. You're not allowed to politic near voting lines, right? Everywhere you go in this country, that's a rule. So they were putting that in there for that part. There must be water and there must be stuff given out. So I don't see that as they were not stopping it. What I'm reading on this is they're stopping political operatives from using that as a chance to stand on those lines and bully people into things. But there absolutely is water and food able to be given out, and it has to be given out. So that I've gone to a few different websites. I threw one article out there from, it's funny. You have to go to all sorts of different places. But just Googling Georgia voting laws fact check, and I started finding articles with, top 5 things, top 10 things you need to know. And that's what I'm seeing on this. Now, if somebody reads something differently, point it out, put it in the chat, let us know. We'll talk about it. We'll pull it up, but that's not being done. I've seen some other things on there with the fact checking that they were going to stop voting on Sundays, and that's not true. They're allowing it on 2 Sundays before in pre-election voting. So I don't see that either. So there are other. If anybody can hit me up, I got Colin saying, Kevin, you need to read it again. I don't read what again, Colin? Like, show me what it is. What are you're speaking about? I threw out the article. I can throw out some more articles.
Well, how about this? We do this right now, Kevin, as we wait for Amir Sealy to come in. Put up some of the articles, the 2 ones that you sent me, and we're going to go over it together with everybody. I think we put up enough of these articles between the 2 of us in our preparation for tonight's evening that we can have discussions on each and every one of these clips, or even if it's articles that we can read together, everybody, that we can have discussions about this. So go ahead. I'll wait for which one you want to put up first.
So I'll use the CBS.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder.
You ready? I'll click on it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go.
Visible?
Let's see. Yeah.
All right.
This is the one with the fact checking?
Yeah, this is CBS News, right? So I'm not going with a right-wing news organization. We can't, say that this is not, Fox News or Breitbart or something really crazy, right? CBS, right. I would say we can go with, right? So they have the top 9, Georgia voting facts. It is, to me, it actually seems pretty reasonable. The bill requires counties to at least 2 Saturdays of early voting. Options for Sundays. Previously, Georgia only required 1 Saturday. So they've expanded, not decreased. All right. I don't see where that changes much. The ID stuff, look, I've always been a fan, and this has nothing to do. This has nothing to do with this election or any election. I'm a tremendous fan of ID for it. I've always been. This is not, and I think a lot of people, in my circles in news, I've always seen more Republicans and Democrats pushing this way before the election of Trump. Nevertheless, the removal of him. This one is changing it so instead of in mail-in voting, they want a photocopy of your license or some sort of government ID sent in, or the license number. In the past, what it was.
Now read that again. They want
So
it to be sent in, right?
When you're doing the mail-in voting today, they do it by signature. They compare your signature today to new signature to old signature. And every year, a certain amount of signatures get tossed. They say it doesn't match. They toss them.
We agree with that.
So,
but it has to be so outlandish, the signatures, where like I'm ambidextrous. I can write with my left and I can write with my right. If I signed my voter thing, my mail-in voting ballot with my left hand, you would know that there's a discrepancy in the signature, right?
Yep.
So something so transparent like that.
Yeah. Well, look,
we understand.
They threw out, this is what they said, right? 3,200 votes out of 1.1 million. Not a lot. 3,200 out of 1.1 million is not a lot of votes. What they will want to do now is you send in your vote with your driver's ID number on it. If you don't have a license from the Georgia DMV, then you can take a picture of some other ID and send it in with it.
So let me ask you a question. You don't find a problem with the fact that for me to mail in a ballot, I have to send my ID?
It's just your driver's license number.
But I'm mailing in.
Yeah.
But listen, we all worry about cyber, our privacy getting stolen in the cyber world. But now it's okay to send it through the mail. Your personal information. You're on a because
they're changing this. It's not the mail anymore, Bill. They're going to have designated boxes that you have to drop this off in. Right? Okay. Or is it right? I'm pretty sure that's the way they're doing it here. I'll catch that in a little bit. But okay, even if it's mail, if you're voting, you're putting all your information in it. You're adding in your driver's license ID. I got to tell you something.
Isn't your let me ask you a question. Do you not think the driver's ID is equivalent to putting your social security number on something?
No.
Why?
Your driver's license ID is out there already. You know how many times that's been taken from you? Anytime somebody scans your license.
I've
hit a point.
Let me just say this. I have never heard anybody say to me, "Yo, your driver's ID number has been compromised over your social security number." I've never heard that.
Bill, everything's been compromised.
I'm not disputing that. I'm not saying that it hasn't been, that anything can be hacked, and I'm not disputing that. But what I'm trying to say is, what has been always protected? Your social security number, and the bottom line is your personal identification. Like if you call your lady now, or
it can still
anybody,
be protected, Bill. This is early voting, right? If this scares you, you go online and you vote. Right? Okay,
but some people can't do that, right?
Yeah, of course there are people who can't do that. We need to make sure everybody can. Look, you're putting your name, date of birth, address, and all your info in the previous one, and now putting this. I'm going to tell you something, as somebody who is in this world in law enforcement, investigating these things and looks into breach data. This ain't going to change anything. It's just not. Bill, if I want to your stuff is out there.
Oh, absolutely.
What saves you is your name.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
You're Kevin Branzetti. My stuff is out there. I have no safe ground because there's only one Kevin Branzetti in this country. So if you find something on him, it's me, right? But Bill Foster can hide amongst a lot of Bill Fosters.
Absolutely.
That's what saves you more in the ID realm than anything else. We could do it offline. I could show you some sites and things about breach data, and we're all out there. Your social security, your driver's license, the passwords you used to use, it's all there. Everything exists. So on my perspective of that, it doesn't scare me. I've surrendered. That data's already been lost. But I get it. I get that. But that's okay. So that's the change, right? They went to the ID. They're going to use these drop boxes, right? Now, they're putting one drop box for every 100,000 voters in a county. I don't know what that really means in the end for people. Right? I guess in a rural area, there'll be a little bit longer of a drive to a drop box, is what it sounds like. In a city like Atlanta, we'll have a whole bunch of drop boxes. Odds are, though, for those who live in rural areas, and driving 30 miles in a rural area is easier than driving 3 miles in Manhattan. Right.
Well, like read what it says. Well, what does that say?
One.
What it says, no excuse is that. Let me get with that. No excuse absentee voting has been in place in Georgia since 2005. The state didn't authorize the use of secure drop boxes as a way to return ballots until 2020. Yeah. As a response to the pandemic, the new law mandates at least one drop box per county. Now, that's per county.
Last year for the election, they put up, like a lot of states, right? They kind of winged it. So they put up the drop boxes in different places to help people. Now they made it, it wasn't a rule, it wasn't a law. They just did it to kind of make it more convenient because of the
pandemic. You hear the key word that you just said? You said they put it up so they can help people. This doesn't help people right now.
Now they put it into law that it has to be there.
Yeah, but they're talking about one per county. They're not putting
one
it up
per 100,000 people in a county. So if a county has 100,000, it only gets one. If a county's got 500,000, it gets 5 boxes. And I listen. I don't know. I live in Rockland County. It's a 20-minute drive in any direction for me to the edge of the county.
Well, this says the new law mandates at least one drop box per county. So
per 100,000 voters in a county. There can only be one.
This must be located inside the clerk's office or inside a voting location and are only going to be accessible during early voting hours. So that means if you can't get there before the early voting hours, then you won't be able to drop them off. And then close when the
but you have weeks.
Period.
You have weeks to do it. It's not one day of voting hours. It's weeks.
Well, let me just say this, and I'm going to read some of the comments. Do you not see this is a deterrent from the way it was able before? Before, if it was lenient, let's play this game. Even if it was lenient, right now, this is a deterrent for anybody that has childcare, that works 12-hour days. That
in the 2016 election, these things didn't exist.
Why is that?
They didn't.
Because he won, right?
No, they didn't exist in the 2012, the 2008. I don't.
But wait a minute. You just said earlier that you said you've been an advocate for this. So if it didn't exist, why were you an advocate?
No, I've been an advocate for the ID.
Okay.
I've been an advocate for ID.
All right. All right. So hold on. Let me just read some of the comments. It should. Colin said it should be illegal to wait 4 hours to cast a vote. Absolutely. John Mills.
Completely agree.
He said, why are they closing the polls at 5 p.m.? Most people don't get off until 5 to 6. Absolutely. If you have to wait 5 to 10 hours to vote, you can't go before work. No one should have to wait that long to vote. Absolutely. Frieda said, I have carpal tunnel in my right hand, and my signature is not the same. Absolutely. Darren Joseph said, drop boxes like the... Hold on, let me just finish everything.
Yeah.
Drop boxes like the legal ones that the Republicans put in California. So go ahead, Kevin.
So this is for early voting, right? We're talking about the drop boxes and the time frame. Counties must operate early voting from at least 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. That doesn't mean they can't offer it before or after, right? They're allowed to do 7 to 7. This is just the early voting to get into those drop boxes.
Hold on for a second. Everybody, right. I got my man coming in, my brother, Amir Sealy, coming in the building right now. And I want him to join this conversation as we converse about this. What's up, good brother? How you feeling, baby?
I'm good. Thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. My dude is in the building.
Good evening, Amir.
Good evening,
Amir. So join in. I know you was listening from the wings. What do you think about these new laws and regulations? Go ahead, brother.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, again, like I said, thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
To both of you gentlemen's points to this, point. First off, Bill, you painted a very clear picture of, how this could be of detriment to the community only from this standpoint. And Kevin, this segues into what you were saying. First of all, to your point about it not being a part of the voting process in prior elections. So let me understand this. It's never been a part of the process in prior elections. The prior elections have always seemingly led to a Republican outcome. The first time it becomes a Democratic outcome, all of a sudden it's problematic as to how some of these procedures were executed. That doesn't seem strange to you, Kevin, or anybody?
No, I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I mean, and I understand that. What I'm understanding out of this is that they did it in 2020 because of the pandemic, right? They put these boxes out there. They said, let's just do it. So now the state put it on the books that it must be done. So they're not getting rid of them. They're not getting rid of the boxes that clearly helped. But to your Democrat win.
But to your point, you've limited it. So to your point, you said we did it because it was helpful. People were able to do what they needed to do in wake of a situation where we were trying to do social distancing. We were trying to keep people safe, so forth and so on. So if it supposedly met all of these parameters, why all of a sudden would you scale it back when it?
Do we know if it's being scaled back? Do we know how many they were using in 2020?
Well, we don't. But the fact that you had to go on record and change it, or at least bring it to light. No, hear me out, Kev.
Sure.
The fact that you had to go on on record and supposedly now make parameters means that there obviously was something that you didn't like about how this thing supposedly either worked or how it played out. Now, with that having been said, that is a direct and always a interesting part of the conversation that we don't have. Things are always wonderful until seemingly they're not in the favor of the people who want it to be in their favor. And then all of a sudden we have to make regulations and we have to make changes. Now, I'm not saying that that is a good thing or a bad thing. What I'm saying is that doesn't seem interesting to you. I don't care whether we're talking about the voting situation or we're talking about anything else for that matter. When you have a situation where, quote unquote, it's giving everybody an opportunity to have their voices heard, to be seen, to be a part of the process, then because maybe the outcome wasn't supposedly what you expected or what you would have liked, now we have to write it down and we have to make certain things, to the eye test, make them make sense. That's always how this plays out for us, Kevin. And I don't mean that as any knock to any, particular party or to any particular situation. I'm just telling you, when you look back over the history of this country and when you look back over the history of when we're allowed to, become a part of a situation, then all of a sudden there has to be regulations or there have to be new rules put in place. That's not fair.
Amir, I get you. I understand. And you might be right? I might be right. You might be right. And this is the interesting thing about this. Where in the end, I'm not sure what the right answer is, right? We're starting to delve into this. 1 second, my little one.
Yeah, sure. As we take that little semi-commercial break, everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. And we've been enjoyed by my brother, Amir Sealy, in the building. And Amir, just give people, while Kevin takes his little family time out, just give people what you're doing, too. I want people to understand that you have a platform with my other brother my other brother that's not with us tonight, Talent, but give people something about your podcast. So
yes,
please.
Thank you. We have two podcasts that we do. We have one that we do on Fridays called The Race Debaters. That's at 6:30 on Instagram. You can also pick it up on any of Talent's pages on Facebook. He rebroadcasts it through his pages. And then we have another one we do called Motivational Mondays, which is we end the week and then we start the week, which is also at 6 p.m. And that's on WEMSradio.com. Both of them are really platforms that we started once the pandemic started as a way to, kind of just quell the fear quell the fact that, there was so much information that was being divulged that, had everybody, kind of in a state where, we weren't sure about what was being divulged and what was being shared. And we wanted, just to give people an opportunity to have a way to, kind of woosah from some of it, to put it lightly, and put them in a headspace where you could take the information in smaller bits, digest it, then hopefully, spread it throughout your circles as well. So then this way we could all, kind of be on the same page and at least have a fighting chance as far as the information. My Instagram handle is AROCK Sealy, SEALY on Instagram. So you can, follow me on, on that platform. And then on Facebook, I'm just plain old Amir Sealy. I'm not one of these people who has these, imaginative
elaborate different names.
I am who I am. Bill Foster, can tell y'all, I had the pleasure of meeting him, a few years ago. We had always, been in and around each other in circles, but I didn't have the pleasure of meeting him until one of my other very good friends introduced us, and kind of, we just had a synergy in that moment that I knew, we would kind of continue to build from there.
Yes. And
I've been, obviously watching you guys' platform every week. And one of the things that I enjoy about it is, we're giving both sides of the spectrum. And, I think that, that's necessary in this day and age. We have, so much of, one-sided trains of thought. And I think that that's, really what's causing us to have, the stagnation, obviously, when it comes to, being able to, have these conversations. And we got to, we have to learn to listen. We can't just, only think that whatever points of views we're giving is the end all, the be all. Sometimes we really don't understand specific things because we either not in those people's shoes, or we just really can't process what that really means. And, again, to get back to, this topic in particular, when you talk about, the fact that voting rights and, so forth and so on has been something that's been amended year in and year out since it's been, brought into fruition. Again, that's why, to me, Kevin, this is such a odd situation that they would wait until after, quote unquote, like I said, maybe the outcome wasn't what they expected or what they had hoped. So now you supposedly are giving stringent, ideologies as to how and why and, what the voting should look like. And my thing is, you finally had a turnout where people really came out in full force, whether they went to the post office, dropped things in the postal boxes. I mean, let's be honest. As we watched the political race unfold, we had the postmaster being called in. We had mailboxes being picked up. Never in the history of this country had anything like that ever happened. But all of a sudden, we don't want to have post office boxes out. Really? Come on. Look, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I am a person who, based off an eye test, you can honestly say to yourself, yeah, okay, in a million years, we never had that happen. All of a sudden, in this particular climate and with, everything that's going on and quote unquote, with the way that the world was, unfortunately unfolding, all of a sudden that seemed okay to everybody. How?
Kev, what's your take on that?
Well, I was Googling the mailbox thing because I'm not even sure that I was fact checking that. I don't even sure that actually even happened, but I want to go into that in a minute. Going back to this, I actually think all 50 states should have been enacting new laws after the election because the pandemic changed things.
Okay.
Right. And a lot of states like Georgia reacted to the pandemic, did things. And now we should make sure we're thinking of that for the future, putting those things on the books. It shouldn't just be the pandemic year we made it easier to vote. It should be easy to vote every year, right? That should be the goal.
Correct.
Some of this to me looks like that's part of the goal. Could there be some nefarious stuff behind this? Yeah. Understand something. I don't trust either side. Republicans and Democrats, when they run a state or a country and have both sides of the house, they rig things. They know more about elections, counties, districts than we'll ever know.
Absolutely.
Right. The presidential election, those two camps knew not just what 5 or 6 states counted, they knew what counties in those states really counted and meant something. They know this very granularly. And they change borders all the time on voting districts. This happens. Democrats do this. Republicans do this. They realize that District 12 in New York City, if we expand it a little this way, and we take a part of District 14, which was more Republican, we can change that to now more Democrat. Both sides do this. So understand again, I don't trust either end. I don't like, and Bill, I've told you this during the election. Right. I don't mind Biden being president. I want a Republican House and Congress because that is that balance. I like when there's both sides are in charge because then we have to work.
But you know what's so funny, and I feel you on that. But we already saw what happened when Obama was in office, and what the Republicans didn't allow him to do. So listen,
and the Democrats didn't allow Bush to do things. And we can go back across the time.
I'm not disputing that, but I am, I guess. But what I'm trying to say, I am, and that's what I'm saying. I am saying that. But the thing is, when we talked about 45 being in office, and he talked about he wanted a wall, he had the house. He didn't get the wall. Listen, right now we're talking about a man that claimed like he was the town crier. Right now he was Paul Revere, and he said that I lost the election. Don't count the votes. Don't count the mail-in votes because it's a fraud. Don't count them in. But he's the same man that voted from Florida. He mailed in his votes. So what the hypocrisy is killing me. And now all of a sudden, the fact that he lost, and now he's saying I lost because is a fraud. There was tampering. It was this and there was that. And now everybody's like, yo, the town crier. They're following. It's like the puppeteer. Oh, yeah, he said it was a crime. He said it was a problem. And now everybody's like, yeah, let's put it in motion. Let's put it in motion. And then the clown governor in Florida, in what's his name, Atlanta and Georgia is like, yo, he wants to go right hard because now he has a blue state. So you know what's so funny? When we asked for nobody cried before. Now all of a sudden,
challenge that statement.
Okay,
people.
Hold on, I'm gonna let you challenge it. I just want to read some of the comments before you challenge it. I just want to finish what I'm trying to say. But the bottom line is, it was out there, right? He put it in the universe. And Kevin, you and I know from a law enforcement standpoint, Amir's played ball. Yo, if I keep saying pass the ball, even if I'm not open, pass the ball. When it's a timeout and I say, yo, you didn't pass the ball. You heard me say pass the ball. But motherfucker, you wasn't open. You know what I'm saying? So right now, we keep saying, we hear everybody talking about, yo, it's a fraud. Because he lost. Now we had the Capitol, the insurrection on January 6th. But and he keeps saying that they stole the election. Ain't nobody steal election. Listen, but nobody cares right now, and you got me on the rant. Nobody cares that this dude has just come out. Everybody's found out that this dude has stole of like $1 million and some odd dollars from his supporters. And where's the money? But everybody is still following the leader. Like, yo, it's almost like that commercial or that show that the wooden soldiers, and everybody's walking blind and they're walking off the dead ledge and they're falling down and they're cool with it because now they're talking about, oh, well, now we want integrity. Yo, the dude that was in office didn't have any integrity. And now people are screaming integrity. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti, and we got my special guest, Amir Sealy, in the building. Let me read some of these comments real quick. Going back to my man, John Mills, in the building. I saw you, Johnny Eldridge. Johnny, if you want to come in, hit me, text me, and so I can send you the thing. John Mills, he said, ID is a poll tax. If you are older and don't drive and your driver's license is expired, you can't vote. How about we just go back to the days of guessing how many jelly beans are in the jar? If you can't get to a DMV or afford an ID, what do you do? Sharon Saunders is in the building. She said these voting laws were implemented in direct response to the overwhelming votes for Democratic voters. Absolutely. People wanted to get rid of that dude that was in office. People were disgusted. And we came out to vote early due to the pandemic. Vanetta said, "Good evening, Bill Foster, Malika Foster, and Kevin. I made it. Glad you're here." Sharon said, "The laws put in place are purposely restrict, such as cutting hours during time of the day when voting is strongest, even taking the power away from the Secretary of State and uh, putting it in. I'm sorry, I don't. Putting it in the hands of the governor in case of a recount. These are the strong push to make it harder to vote when it became clear 2020 that the Republican Party was losing." Vanetta said he won. He wasn't saying that when he voted, he won, and Hillary said it was a fraud. Exactly. Vanetta also says the voting law happened because people of color showed up and showed out. This is a way to suppress from voting again. Sharon says also voting suppression in America is not new. Charlene Phil, is that her name? Charlene I Phil, law professor and president and director counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, spoke and about voter suppression and let me see. Let's see. Okay. Voter suppression at an event I attended during the Obama administration. She said that the Republican Party was making a concerted effort to suppress votes in Democratic districts across the country. I live in New York, so I didn't know what she was talking about. Then Stacey Abrams runs for the governor of Georgia in 2018, and the voter fraud was front and center. Exactly. Kevin puts in his stuff. Sharon says, never mess with a black woman. Stacey Abrams bet then and then now an own game turned against Georgia Blue. The Republican Party went crazy and passed some of the most restrict and racist laws. So everybody out here is feeling the pinch. We understand right now that we're not, Kevin, when we talk about integrity, I get it. Kevin and I, we sidebar almost every day, every other day about things. And I send him some information on Jim Crow and stuff like that. This right now, when we talk about integrity, nobody's not saying you can't have ID, right? Fine. But when you're talking about you're restricting hours, when the average person doesn't work 8 hours a day, they may not work 8 hours a day when they're there, but nobody literally works 8 hours a day. The average person works 12 hours a day, some way, somehow. And in lieu of that, just getting to work and then getting home. So the fact of it is now you cut this off at 5 o'clock. Then you want to talk about having an ID just to mail in a drop ballot. And come on now, come on. Let me tell you something. This wasn't a problem when it was red. It wasn't a problem. That's like me getting in a fight and I lose a fair fight with two hands, and I say, oh well, wait a minute, you got better, you slept better than I did last night, or I'm trying to find the greatest parable that I can, and maybe that's not it, but I'm just trying to say that you taking away and you're putting every obstacle in front of us, people of color, because you lost, and it's so unfair, and people are using this as saying, oh well, who's like the big picture that you're throwing out in the universe, Kevin, is like ID. Well, okay, you can have ID. Like we have a law, Kevin, in law enforcement, right? That the world is supposed to have ID at, what is it, 16, 15 years old? That's fine, right? People get arrested for not having an ID. How often is that implemented? You understand what I'm trying to say? But now, right now, we're talking about, listen, you got to have ID for drop boxes. You got to have ID for certain things. Got to have the ID to, like, 5 to 6. Well, wait a minute. Who can get off between, like I said, 9 and 5? Well, tell me. Let me ask you this question: If voting is a certain time and a certain day in certain places, how do you feed your family if you have to take that day and lose that day monetarily But the bottom line is, and you can only do it from 9 to 5. And the average person has to be to work either before 9 or at 9, and he doesn't get off until 5. Tell me how does he vote, Kevin?
This hours that they're talking about here are the pre-votes, pre-election. This is not election day voting.
I understand.
So this is at minimum 9 to 5 and weekends. So that's pre-election. I am, as we're talking, Googling what election day voting hours are, because that's not in what I'm reading in this new law. It's not the election day hours. This is all the weeks leading up to beforehand to get your vote in. Okay.
So Kev, again, which you, like you said, Googling and, trying to figure that out. The weekends, just throwing this out there. My son plays basketball. My daughter's in dance, so forth and so on. Do you understand what I'm saying, Kev? This, again, did not become a problem until they lost. There was never a problem. Nobody had an issue about early voting, this, that, the third, until there was a loss. And through the history of this country, and you can, fact check, you can look it up, only time laws are changed, the only time the parameters are changed is every time there's a loss, and it appears that people of color have figured out or are complying with the system as it is in that moment. And once they figure out that we've complied and we've done everything according to what they've, structured and laid out, but we still somehow come out with an outcome in our favor, all of a sudden you want to change the laws or change the rules again. That's a proven fact. That's not something I'm making up. Like I said, you can look through it. 14th Amendment, 13th Amendment, go back, look. But my point to that is that's where we have an issue. That's why there's such an outcry, because there's never this same kind of outcry when things are in certain people or certain establishments' favor. That's not fair. And to the point that you're even talking to the point that in this day and age, this is something that I said years and years ago. First of all, I don't believe in our political system. I think it's broken. It has been broken since day one. And until we're really ready to have that conversation, the rest of this is all, chatter or whatever. But here's the real problem. So let me understand this. Every single solitary thing in this world has evolved. Cars have evolved, AC, so forth and so on. Voting still has the same foolish voting system that we had since day one. Yet I can pay bills. I can book trips. I can do all this stuff on my phone or on a tablet, this, that, third. But I still need to physically go someplace where I have to stand in the booth and all of that. And that, again, doesn't seem strange to not one person.
Voting.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. And you know why I believe voting things haven't changed? Because those who won are the ones in charge of laws. And why would they change a law that got them in?
So to that exact point, reiterating what I'm saying about nothing about anything is detrimental to you until you don't have that anymore at your disposal. That is unfair. No matter how they slice it, and that's not a black or white thing. That is unfortunately just an unfortunate circumstance of this country and of our voting rights and of the way that they structured that thing. And to your point, and again, that's why I brought up the 13th Amendment and the 14th Amendment. To your point, even something that you said earlier about counties and, knowing the particulars of this, that, and the third. Look, at the end of the day, like I said, if this thing was fair and if it was just like it's supposed to be, then it shouldn't make a difference. If you got to count till the wee hours of the morning, it takes 2 to 3 weeks later to count, and we get the numbers and they, work out like they're supposed to be, then that's all that should matter. But the mere fact that even in this last election, well, when I was up, y'all should have stopped counting. Do you remember hearing that? Do y'all remember hearing that being said?
Yeah.
So that goes to show you, again, the detriment of how jacked up the system is. And that's what I'm saying about this. I don't care about who's in, who's not in. I agree with you, Kevin, in this regard. First of all, I don't think either party has anybody's interest at heart other than the people who are in office.
Absolutely.
The last thing I'll say about this, and this is just me speaking for me, there should be term limits. Old dudes who got voted in the 50s should not still be in the office. You got voted in the 40s and 50s, which means the country was a totally different place when you got in there. You have no idea what the country's like now. So you need to go someplace where you can retire, sit down, collect, and live off the wonderful money that you milked the system out of.
Word.
And go on with your life. But that's
Absolutely.
not the way that the system is set up. So again, I might sound angry. I might
because
sound loud.
the system is set up by those who won.
And
that's
so
why
again,
you're not going to get term limits on things because
who
eliminates their own job?
But so to that point, Kevin, that's why I'm saying it doesn't make a difference about the boxes and this and that and the third. It's set up for the people who are already winning.
Yep.
And the problem with the people who are already winning is, like I said, if you got voted in let's just say the 40s or the 50s, we're in 2021. You have milked more than enough money out of the system that you should be able to live your life and go on. That's just the truth. But the problem is that's not what we're addressing. What we're addressing is the system and how it works or doesn't work. It's not about the system. It's about the foolish people who are already voted themselves in. You see these pictures when they show the people who are in office. Dudes got gray hair on gray hair. Really? You in here making decisions about what in 2021? When you got in toasters, typewriters, and all that stuff was still in effect. But nobody said that.
Yo, Amir, toasters and typewriters was like, oh wow.
I still have a toaster.
Now you got text messaging and clouds and all this stuff. Do you understand what I'm saying? And like I said, this is not to destroy anybody. Or I'm just saying, there's no way you can come up with solutions for problems that are here and now when you're not of the here and now. You're of a lost generation or a generation past, which is great. What you can do is consult and say, hey, when we, had things, this is kind of how things went. So then this way, the old and the new can put their heads together and we can come up with real solutions. But that's not what happens. And that's really what the crux of this, situation is. It's not about Republican, blue, red, independent, and all that stuff. It's about old dudes, predominantly Caucasian, who have had the right to sit in office for very long periods of time and not only make up laws, but control the narrative. And the problem with doing both of those things is you really are not taking into account the full spectrum of what the world is like now. I don't say that to, to demean anybody. I'm not saying that to belittle anybody. But when you sit in the office and you tell somebody a $600 or $1,400 check is too much, yet you have milked the system for millions and millions of dollars, are you seriously telling somebody that that's too much money based off the fact that you have unlimited health care for life? You have protection for life? Really? You're going to tell somebody who doesn't have any of those things that that's too much?
Absolutely. Hold on, Amir. Give me a second. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. And we got my special guest, Amir Sealy, in the building, doing his thing, just bringing some light and sharing some knowledge and having real talk with us. Everybody, like I said, if you like it, subscribe to it. If you're watching it on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, please share it. Let somebody know what's happening, how we getting down. This is Real Talk. I just want to read some of the comments. And then, Kevin, if we're going to finish with this chart, I want to play the mayor's comments to how Major League Baseball decided to step out. Mitch McConnell was like, he had some issues, right? Like, he was like, yo, I got issues with what you're doing, but you still can support a certain way. We're going to talk about that. Everybody, this is Real Talk. It's not over. We just getting hot, baby. Hold on. Let me just read some of the comments in this here. Vanetta said, oh, wait a minute. Let me just go. Vanetta said, and guess what? Are going on to figure out this also. I guess she's talking about what we were talking about earlier. Sharon said, Kevin, in capital letters, Kevin, voting is not just on election day. Early voting by mail and voting on election day is all part of the voting. Vanetta said, 14th Amendment watch on Netflix. Amen. It produced and hosted by Will Smith. Watch it. It conveniently don't want to see the wrong. People don't want to see wrong. I'm assuming that's what it is. I don't give a damn this about power and racism. Go ahead, Vanetta. Say what you feel. I remember this being said, shaking my head. Yes, term limits. Uh, Shout out to James Baker, Guy Baker in the building. Greetings. Mark Rose is in the building. He said, Bill, this is amazing that other states have adopted the same concept. More ashamed than fidelity we have to have our right to vote renewed. That's embarrassing just on principle. Identification shouldn't be a problem. The Republicans are doing their very best at diabolical behavior. What's your take on the Major League Baseball moving the All-Star game? Kevin, I don't know what to say. Sharon, in the last election, everyone had the same opportunity to vote the same way, but idiot Trump told Republican voters, do not vote by mail because it's a fraud. Kevin, I really want to know what your take is on that. They listened to him, so the Republicans voted. Let me catch it again. Voted early, in person, and overwhelmingly by mail. They came out in unprecedented numbers because we knew we had a psycho in office that we had to remove. That's why a Democratic won and presidential election. That's no fraud. I totally agree with that statement because the bottom line is not that people were pro Joe Biden, they were just anti-Trump. And let me tell you something. If you would have put a squirrel running against Trump, people would have voted for that squirrel or a chimpanzee because we all realized that he was the worst thing that was going in part of that. Let me get some ice. And I get it. Let me tell you something. So people are like, "Yo, were you for Trump for Biden?" I was, like I said, if Amir would have voted, if you would have voted, if you would have ran, I would have voted for anybody that ran against that buffoon. And then
not a real compliment to me or Amir. You know, I thought you would have voted for either one of us, no matter who we ran against.
No, well, absolutely. Listen, I mean, in this journalist platform that I sit right now, I try to say neutral, but behind the scenes, don't drink the milk; it's spoiled. I got you. We showing our age of me on that one, right? Yo, that was a good one. That's an icebreaker for the evening.
Yes.
Vanetta said the system was set up to be by racist white men who didn't think that the people of color would demand and challenge the laws that are supposed to cover all, excluding people of color. They didn't think all ethnic groups would demand the law that created cover everyone. Colin, Moscow Mitch says the corporation should stay out of the politics. However, he seemed to have forgotten how much money corporations have given to him. What do you think about Moscow Mitch, Kevin?
He's like everybody else there. I'm not a tremendous fan.
Right.
What do you? Too long. I mean, he falls into the category
of too long. Kev, I got a question for you, Kev, and this was something I was, thinking about while Bill was sharing the other people's comments. Do you think, and this is something that I've wrestled with as well, obviously the formation of what we now know as the United States happened at all kinds of different times, and each settlement had different rules and regulations and blah, blah, and blah, blah. Do you think that there should be a uniformity as far as all of the 51 states, whatever we are, having some uniformity as far as all of the rules and regulations? Because, and the reason why I'm, asking that is because to his comment about baseball, I'm not sure if this is about this particular situation, but yesterday, obviously, the baseball season kicked off, and the Texas Rangers, from what I understand, had a full stadium. They decided to, open up their stadium to everyone, so forth and so on. And, whether you are for or against, whatever's going on, on a broader scale, I'm just wondering, do you think if we had uniformity across the board from, all of this 50 and 51 states or whatever, that these conversations seemingly might go a little bit more effortlessly and seemingly be a little more cohesive. You know what I mean?
Are you talking about the voting rules each state, or just the rules in general?
I'm talking about all of the rules, because I feel like policing, you name it.
I believe we need national policing standards. Yeah,
because I think that that's one of the caveats of these conversations. As you move from state to state or place to place, the rules change, and as the rules change, it kind of blurs the lines, because you're like, all right, well, I've lived in, for instance, I've lived in New York, most of my life, but now I'm moving to Vegas. And Vegas has a whole different set of rules and regulations, even laws on the books, because, those have come up, now, especially with the way social media is set up, where there's laws on the books that you'd be like, how is that even still on the books? Like, how that didn't fall off, or people not saying, that doesn't even happen in this day and age. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, there are crazy laws on the books, even in like New York State. There are rules about like where you can park your horse carriage at City Hall. Like there's a law on the books about that. Like there's wacky laws that you just go.
So that's what I'm saying. Should we have some seemingly some more uniformity across the board for everything? Because this is why we're kind of in the space that we're in. And I'm saying this, prefacing this under the also ideology that we have to remember in a lot of places, especially in southern places, as well as, here in the North, we still have people who are in their 80s and 90s, which means they're not that far removed from a lot of the things that we're talking about now. They actually lived through it, saw it firsthand, not like, we're the way we're living through it and going through it. They saw whites only, and specific things that we didn't even have the opportunity to experience. We're only hearing about it through hearsay or through family and so forth and so on. So I mean, I really think that's obviously a whole nother conversation, but that's really what we're up against. We live in a world where every place that you go has a different set of rules, and I'm like, really? In this day and age, 500 years later or whatever, however old United States is now, we still have that? Come on, guys, that's crazy.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on that. I think some things are good to have states' rights. I think some of us are different, and maybe it makes sense in the Bible Belt to have things that fit them a little bit more. And in New York, we're a little different. Like I consider myself a New York Republican, which I think is far different than a Bible Belt Republican, right? I think that's kind of it. And there, I don't know where I would fit in the spectrum. I don't know. I might be a Democrat there, and who knows? Okay. But I do believe some of these things need to be more uniform, and I don't argue with you on that. These voting things are difficult. There are states that only have it till 6 p.m., right? There are states that cut off early. New York is 9 p.m. I just looked up Georgia's 7 to 7 on election day. All right. And if you're online by 7 p.m., they have to take you no matter how long it takes to finish that line. Who wants to stand there till midnight? Nobody. God bless people who do. To me, it should be an automatic. Once you have a year where you have that many, it should never, ever happen again. Right. I get it. Last year was the largest election we've ever had, ever. And we still didn't have enough people turn out. Right, as far as I'm concerned, right? Like until we hit 80% of the population voting, I don't think we're anywhere near where we should be. That shouldn't happen. What does that cost in the end? These are elections. Well, they're pricey a little bit. They're not that expensive. Election day employees are temporary workers. They're not permanent. There's no pensions. In our budget, that should be a ground ball.
Well, there are people making side money. There's Miss Johnson and Miss Sanchez, and there's Miss Branzetti that we grew up in a building that not working anymore, but they tired of doing nothing and they want to be a part of that.
Yeah, they have a good time. And the people who do it, it's a long day actually for them too, right? Like, if you make it a 14-hour day, those same people there all day long, and it's usually
and they got to be there like 5 in the morning, or like 4:30, 5 in the morning. and pass and like 9 o'clock. So shout out to the
I don't
workers.
see many of us young folks going out and working that. I also think election day should be, maybe it should be, there's an argument, should it be a Saturday? I just think we just make that Tuesday a national holiday. Close it. Shut
everything.
That what's so funny? I have no problems with that either, because the bottom line is if you close it, then that way everybody can vote. Then we can play with these hours. You know what I'm saying?
Close it down. Open up more places. Let's get it on.
But with that being said, even on a national holiday, people are still working somewhere somehow.
Oh yeah. There's always going to be people working, but there's early voting. Like, there's only so much we can do. We make it a national holiday. It helps. You have early voting. It helps. There are people, but we all have friends and family members, usually ones who do a lot of talking, who don't vote.
Yeah.
Right. Like the loudest person in the room doesn't vote.
But to your point about them not voting, I'm pretty sure it's usually because they're tired of this particular system. Look, like I said, this is no knock to any particular candidate or any, like I said, branch or whatever the case may be. I always say this. First of all, you see it in movies, but you see it in real life. You and Bill have been officers together. Now let's just be honest. If Bill comes to you with an idea, he goes, "Hey, Kevin, I got this idea that we should do, A, B, C, and D." And Kevin, you go to another fellow officer who thinks Bill's idea is stupid or just doesn't agree with it, and he doesn't go along with it. That's what voting is. And that's the real problem. Same for the candidates. Oh, I got lofty ideas. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change this and I'm going to make this beautiful and I'm going to make that beautiful. However, Kevin decides, you know what I mean? I don't really like, those ideas and I'm not really on board with that. So then Bill goes, dang, me and Kev is beefing. I don't know if I'm even on board with either one of those guys. He has a totally different agenda. That's why this sucks. It doesn't have anything to do with the candidates. It doesn't have anything to do with voting. It has to do with the individuals and how the system works once you actually become a part of the system. But again, nobody wants to be honest, and we don't want to talk about that. We close our eyes to it. We close our ears to it. And you see it time and time again. How do I know? Because I've been to multiple. Matter of fact, I'll give you a great one. So when the mayor was elected here, de Blasio was elected here for the city, some very good friends of mine who own a restaurant out here in Brooklyn had all of the mayoral candidates come through, and the controller. So de Blasio, all the people who were running, or controller, everybody came through. It happened to be the same night as Game 7 of the finals with Cleveland and somebody. So I went to the spot so I could watch the game. I didn't care nothing about the candidates, none of that stuff. So I'm sitting there, I'm watching the game. Some beautiful sorority sisters put the whole program together, whatever. I'm watching the game, sitting there and watching. LeBron, come on, dog. I need you to win this championship, whatever. I'm focused. So all of the candidates speak. They go through their whole spiel, whatever. The candidates all leave. So one of the sorority sisters comes over to me. She goes, I noticed the whole time you didn't not once look up at the candidates and what they had to say. I said, because the system is broken. It's not about the candidates. They all had wonderful things to say. And then I ran back everything that the candidates had to say. And she said, wow, you heard all of that? I said, yeah. I said, but the problem is, just like I explained to you, it's not going to work, because if I'm not on board with what you're trying to do, then you don't want to be on board with what I'm trying to do. Yeah. So here we have a stalemate. And once we have a stalemate, guess what? Nobody wins. So we all lose. And that's really what the issue is and what the problem is with politics. Again, like I said, nobody wants to be honest about that. We don't want to say it out loud. Everybody kind of whispers, in corners and this and that and the third. But that's what the real issue is. I don't think that like I said, any of the candidates are specifically good or bad. I think they all have wonderful, lofty ideas about how wonderful they can make the world and the things that would improve our everything. But the problem is, like I said, we don't get along with each other, because if I'm not on board with you, then you don't get on board with me. So then we have a stalemate. And once we have that,
hold that thought, Kevin, I want to come to the other clip with the mayor talking. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host Kevin Branzetti, and our special guest, Amir Sealy, in the building. Not that one, Kevin. We could talk about that. Not that one. It's the one where the mayor is talking about Major League Baseball backing out. It's the one you sent me, I think.
I didn't send you anything about the mayor saying anything about Major League Baseball.
Oh, yes, you did. Next time.
I'm going to challenge you on that. Yeah.
Hold on. Look, you sent me 2 of them. You sent me 2 things.
I sent you 2 articles. They were the same. They're both on the Georgia law.
I know, and that's the one where one of the mayor's talking in one of them.
It might have had a video in the side thing that you caught, but the article was nothing to do with that. I don't know.
I think, not this one, the one that you pulled up. Pull up the next one, because that's the one where I think she's talking, and I just want to let's see if we can pull that up. I just want to read some of the comments real quick. Republican James Baker said Republican politicians know their views are not shared by the majority of the American people. Hence, they'll do anything with the dwelling power to limit voting, so they'll have a chance to their policies. Vanetta said Moscow Mitch can suck exactly salt.
Just got better. Right now, get our fastest speed internet.
James Baker said Mitch the Butch is nothing but a money-hungry opportunist who will subvert the legal democratic process to keep conservatives in charge. Mark said nothing much says. Oh, he's talking to Vanetta. Collins said term limits is needed for the crooks in the United States Congress and Senate. And when you lose an election, you should also lose your benefits, more than benefits for life after you're fired from your job. Vanetta said, okay, everybody. Sharon said the Republican Party has lost the moral core. I have no doubts that I ever have a moral compass. If you are Republican today, you are equivalent to being a fascist. That's deep. Vanetta said, I will say this. Yeah, she's harsh. She's tough. You know what I'm saying?
That is tough.
Unfortunately, James Baker said, unfortunately, the browning of American County continues. Republicans will do any and everything to hold on to power. You see it every day with the ridiculous policies. Absolutely. Is this what we talk about? Yes, I think. Go ahead.
Think this is what you're talking about. But I want to add to that and to ask something with Amir. To me, what is every politician's main goal?
I think every politician's main goal is just to, first of all, get elected.
That's it, to get reelected from day one. That's all.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And with that having been said, usually they will, give you some nuggets or, say some things that, speak to your spirit or, at least
whatever it takes.
Yeah. And like I said, I got no problem with that. I really don't. The problem that I have with the situation is, like I said, once the goal is achieved, first of all, they're not coming through on the promises that you made. And secondly, like I said, not working together cohesively so that everybody wins. And that's the problem. It's like I said, it doesn't make one side better or one side worse. If you're going to lie or if you're not going to follow through and you're not going to do what you promised to do, then don't stand up there and tell people that. In every other walk of life, we're taught supposedly your word is your bond or whatever. So politicians get a chance to get away with that. And again, nobody questions that. We don't think that that's not fair.
Yeah,
you can't do that as a human being. You can't do that as a police officer, but politicians, it's okay.
Yeah, nah. Absolutely.
I've said this to Bill for a long time. I'll vote for anybody who pushes unity.
Absolutely.
Any politician. I don't care what side of the fence you are. If unity is what you're about, and I had showed this a long time ago. There was a great thing during we all kind of missed it because of what was going on with the 2020 election. But the governor election in Utah had a Democrat and Republican, and they did an ad together on TV saying, we don't care which one of us you vote for, you choose, you decide. We'll both still work to make this state a great state. And it was like, I want those two running for president, right? Like that. I know nothing else about them but that commercial.
You just want unity. You want unity.
And that's it. And I'll vote for them for anything.
Kev, let me just interject. Kev, I want to go to this video because I want to show that other thing about the law enforcement while we have Amir here too later on. So let's go to this and have a brief conversation about this. Go ahead.
change voting laws in the wake of the 2020 election. Major League Baseball has announced it is pulling this year's All-Star game from Georgia over one such law in the state. So let's remind folks about what that law does. It shrinks the window for sending absentee ballots, severely limits the number of ballot drop boxes, and gives more control of local elections to state lawmakers who are majority Republican. It also makes it a crime to give water or food to people waiting in line to vote. There are also less controversial elements like expanding early voting so that there are at least 17 days to cast a vote, and it can go up to 19 days if counties choose to offer 2 Sundays of voting. The bill also requires that when lines are longer than 1 hour, counties must send more staff and machines out. A number of big businesses in Georgia, though, including Delta and Coca-Cola, have criticized the law, leading Republicans to threaten retaliation. For more on all of this, we are joined now by Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. Mayor Bottoms, good morning to you. Complicated morning for you, I imagine, because this is somewhat divided Democrats. On the one hand, you've got Joe Biden, President Biden, supporting the move by Major League Baseball. But Stacey Abrams, prominent Democrat in the state, says while she commends Major League Baseball, she's disappointed about the impact this move could have on families there in the Atlanta area. Where are you on this morning?
Well, first of all, good morning, and thank you for having me. You know, this is a tough one. The Metro Atlanta economy is the 10th largest economy in the nation. And so when you talk about boycotts in and around Atlanta and the state as a whole, it's impacting small businesses. It impacts corporations that hire not just corporate officers, but administrative assistants, people who clean up the building, work in the cafeteria. And so I respect the decision. I understand the decision, but I don't like the fact that we have been put in this position by our state legislature and our governor because the people of Georgia will suffer.
Yeah, Mayor Bottoms, you've said that other dominoes may fall as a result of this law in your state. Have you heard from other companies who have already signaled that they're not going to do business in Atlanta or in the state of Georgia because of it?
Well, I do know that there are other large-scale events that are openly contemplating whether or not they will stay in our state. Tourism is one of the largest industries in our state. Delta Airlines is one of the largest employers in our state. So this will have a devastating impact. And the irony of it is that we were opened up early under the name of getting back to some type of economic recovery. And with just one signature, that's all been wiped out. And so it's not too late for the governor and the legislators to go back, do something differently. They can go back in January. They can fix this very broken and ill-conceived law, or they could can even go into special session over the next few months and make tweaks that will allow us to continue to be the open and welcoming state that we claim to be.
Well, the governor, Mayor Bottoms, good to see you. The governor and the Republicans in your state legislature do not appear to be backing down. They say they are standing firm. Are you worried that this will now backfire against your state and your city?
I'm absolutely concerned that this will backfire. This is the first of likely many events that we will see pull from our city and from our state. And also, again, we are home to almost 30 Fortune 500 companies in the metropolitan Atlanta area, an area that voted very heavily Democrat back in November and in January. And so it's unfortunate. We've had laws contemplated in the past that people have threatened boycotts, but we've also had governors in the past who vetoed those laws. And this governor has chosen not to do so. Instead, he's doubled down.
So Mayor, how would you like corporations and businesses to respond to this issue?
Well, what you've seen is a response from corporations and businesses.
But it's hurting the city potentially. So what if anything, would you like them to do?
Well, just what corporations have done. They have spoken out and said that they support access to open voting. And that this law is not a good law for our state as a whole. I think that at this point, that is all they can do. But there is a little more. I know many corporations have already said that they will not support candidates with financial support who supported this law. And so it looks like it's going to be a very long and painful fight all the way around. But again, there's an opportunity to fix this. You have to know when to hold, you have to know when to fold. This is hurting our state, the economy of our state, and that's not good for anyone, no matter what side of the aisle you are on.
Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, thank you very much for being with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Wow. Wow. That was wow.
Amir, I'm going to let you comment first on what you saw, what you think about it. Kevin, you can rebuttal, and then Amir, I'll let you come back with something, and then we'll move on to something else. Go ahead, Amir. What do you think about what you just saw?
Well, first of all, I thought that was a very poignant and well thought out response to obviously what's going on in Georgia. In the grand scheme of things, when you really look at really what she was saying, or maybe take into consideration part of what she was saying, she said they have over 30 Fortune 500 companies within that within that state, which means to me a good portion of the employees are regular folk. They're not political folk. They're not, they're not caught up in all that stuff. These are regular, hardworking folk who are trying to do the right thing for themselves and for their families. And because of the way that, again, the structuring of some of the, parts of this new law is not sitting well with the larger amount of people who work in that state every day, who are doing their best to make that state continue to be one of, as she said, one of the 10, largest cities as far as business is concerned. Absolutely. And, so when you see that, you just would like to think from a human standpoint, this has nothing to do with political, human standpoint, wait a minute. Like I said, you guys are okay, meaning the guys who are already in office. You guys have wonderful health care. You guys have wonderful salaries. But the average everyday Joe in Atlanta, Georgia is still trying to hold on to their homes. They're still trying to feed their families. They're still trying to do all the things that most of America is trying to do. And that is survive and take care of themselves. That's it. You can't put it any more simpler than that. I don't know what else I could say that would explain that any, plainer. You know what I mean?
Kev, what's your take on that?
I'm hearing what she has to say. Do I think Major League Baseball should have pulled out? Look, that was a tough call. It is a very tough call. For me personally, like with entertainment, I like entertainment to stay out of politics. When I go to be entertained, I want to be entertained and get my head out of this game for a while. But Major League Baseball has that right. I'm still mixed on these laws, right? Like I listen to that thing and I'm reading these things and I'm reading articles and I'm still not 100% sure. Am I skeptical? Of course, I'm always skeptical. Like I said earlier, I'm skeptical of both sides. Everybody changes rules and laws to make it so they win, right? That's what elected officials do. I don't like any place that has all Republicans running or any place that has all Democrats running it because they take advantage of it. The amount of voter fraud that does really happen in this country is there. It's legit. There are the people arrested for it every year. There are people arrested for it. And I threw an article out there with keeps the stats on people arrested. So I am for the voter ID. I'm for making sure our votes are counted. I don't know, these drop boxes. I don't know, how they're going to treat these rules with the water thing. I get not letting political operatives standing online giving out water. All right. When I'm online to vote, I don't want to hear from somebody telling me about anybody's candidate. It's over. Like I'm sitting, I'm ready, I'm going in, and that's all laws across the country. But I also want to make sure that there's going to be food and water for those people. I don't want anybody standing online for 4 hours. It says in here that they changed it to the lines an hour. The county has to bring more stuff to it. I like to see that actually happen. Am I skeptical? Of course I'm skeptical. We had voting in New York City where there was places where the lines were monstrous. and people had, so, and that wasn't to do with Republicans doing it, right?
No,
I just think it's incompetent. And that's, well, and Amir, you went to it before, right? We're using the same voting system we've used for damn decades. And when we try to change it, we make it worse. We put in new machines, and the new machines screw up. And, the old machines, we had the big arm to pull down, kind of worked better in the long run, right? Like we ran better elections in Iraq than we ran in the U.S.
Wow.
As far as I'm concerned, right? Like, we got everybody to vote, and we just painted their thumbs purple when they walked out, so we knew who voted. And you get a bigger percentage of people. I don't know why we can't figure it out here. It's a shame.
All right, let me just read some comments real quick, and I'll let you, Amir, you just close out on that comment on that's this topic, and we'll go to the other thing that Kevin and I want to talk about. James Baker, he said, my opinion, money talks and BS walks. The only thing these greedy politicians and their corporate benefactors understand is dollars and cents. Boycott every company that supports their decretion policies, and when these companies lose money, they'll change the laws. John Mills, sometimes you have to bring the pain to get change, like the bus boycott. Vanetta got to stand for something, and corporations are going to win in the long run. Darren Gall in the building, former 2-8. The response in Georgia has to be strong, because this isn't just happening in Georgia. There are at least 43 other states trying to change their election laws, all based on LIE. Sharon Saunders, voter suppression in Georgia got stronger, and the demographics in Atlanta started to change tremendously within Democratic districts. Vanetta, boycotting will change it all. What do y'all think about what they're saying about boycotting, real quick, before we go on to something else?
Well, I think, first let me, address the first thing you asked me to address. I think the fact that they decided to pull the game, to Kevin's point, I get what he's saying about, maybe feeling as though entertainment shouldn't have political, undertones or overtones. But the problem, again, is this, Kev, when you look at it from that standpoint, all of the baseball players, all the people who work in the stadiums, all the people who are the vendors are normal, everyday people. Mm-hmm. So all of our baseball players, all of our, the pitchers, the catchers, the outfielders, they have families, they have sons, they have kids. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we can't ever, go under the premise that the worlds don't mix, because they do. They mix because no matter what walk of life you're in, you're still a human being first. It just so happens that entertainment might be the way that you pay your bills, whatever form of entertainment that is. You gentlemen both, at some point chose, law enforcement. That's just the way you paid your bills. That doesn't mean that's Kevin Branzetti. That doesn't mean that's Bill Foster. That means that's just the way that you chose to pay your bills. But outside of that, you still have family. You still have sons, daughters, kids, family. All of that still doesn't go away. And the mere fact that for a moment or hour or whatever, they give us the opportunity to, maybe step out of that realm, that doesn't take away from the fact that as soon as that game is over, guess what they step back into? The harsh realities of what this world is like. Absolutely. So we have to always keep that in mind. And that's, again, part of the problem. We always are trying to compartmentalize stuff. Oh, well, we shouldn't do it because no. It's a human being first. All that other stuff just happens to be part of them being a human being.
Let me just interject. Let me interject for a second. I'm personally, I'm a fan of athletes speaking out. For those, and I hope you don't mind, Amir, for transparency. Amir was an athlete himself, but his brother was a professional ball player that passed away some years ago. Malik Sealy was professional St. John's, and then an NBA player. And shout out to Malik; he was a good brother. I'm so glad that I've had the chance to embrace and converse with you and us develop our bondship. You know what I'm saying? In a whole different level, but always paying homage and respect to Malik Sealy. So with that being said, you come from a strong background, Amir. You know what I'm saying? Your father was a righteous dude, man. And so I'm asking you this question, and this is me segueing into why I brought your brother up. What do you think during today's times? Your brother would have been retired now, but during these today's times, do you think your brother would have not spoken up on the issues of today? That no more shut up and dribble. I don't see your brother shut up and dribbling. You understand what I'm trying to say? Because you're not a shut up and dribble dude. So that's why, and from which, and for your father, for who he was, he didn't bring you up that way. And I'm just taking this from what the pictures that you shared with us. You understand what I'm trying to say? And who he was. If you want to elaborate who your father was, that's fine. If you don't, that's cool. But what the bottom line is, I'm saying all that to say that athletes have a right to speak up, because if they weren't playing ball, they weren't hitting the baseball, they weren't even playing hockey, you know what I'm saying, football, whatever sport it was, they're John and Jane Q. Public, and they're subject to any law enforcement or any situation that is detrimental to who they are as a human being. Give me your thoughts on that, Amir.
Okay. I'll just say this quickly. For those who may have, like you said, may or may not know, like you said, my brother, Malik Sealy, played for St. John's. He was drafted by Indiana. He played for Detroit, Minnesota, and the Clippers. So that's a quick resume of, what he did. But my father, and I used to use bodyguard, but my mom has, since corrected me. My father said he protected his brother and friend, which was the late Malcolm X. So I have sometimes a different perspective on life because of the way I was raised. And in this regard, my mother and father always taught us to truly understand that community is everything. And that goes for everybody across the board. Community is everything. I came up in a time and in an era where Mrs. Johnson could pull you to the side, talk to you about whatever it is you were doing, and then she'd take you to your mother, and then your mother could discipline you as well.
Absolutely.
With that having been said, we have to understand that that's when the world seemed to be a different and maybe a more inclusive place. Because when you have that kind of accountability, seemingly to me, then there's less chance of you being able to get away with the foolishness that we see now on a grander scale.
And let me just interject. I think Kevin and I and you, we all agree. We wish we could go back to the village raising the child. Yes. I'm correct, right? Because the bottom line is that's lost today. Manners are out the window, and there's no disrespect to the new generation. I might need to disrespect the people that was the parents to the new generation, because what happened to you? You stopped. You stopped teaching manners. Yes, no, thank you, and all that. And your kids have just done and said whatever the hell they want to say. So go ahead, Amir, please. Mm-hmm.
But I think even to that point, what has happened, and this was something I alluded to a little earlier. Where we're lost is the bridging of the generations, meaning the youth being able to speak to the elders and vice versa. When I was coming up, there was just an unwritten rule that when you saw gentlemen that were older than you, we didn't call them OGs or anything like that, but they were just the older guys. And if they asked you to do specific things or they asked you to move a certain way, you took it into consideration, because in your eyes, one, they were older than you, and two, at that point in time, it seemed to you that they had more experience than you did as far as the world is concerned. And we've moved away from that. We have this new ideology based off of all the technology that we have that is, to me, pushed us further from one another as opposed to closer, because, through all these social media platforms, you have 11 million followers or 1,100 followers or whatever the case may be. And technically, you might only know 5 of them. Whereas some of us who are a little bit older, you might only have 300 followers, but you actually know all 300 of the followers that you
Absolutely,
have.
absolutely.
So that's a different, mind frame and mindset. But with that, having been said, I think that that's really, again, where we've lost things. The elders are afraid to speak to the young, and the young, unfortunately, feel and think that they know so much more than the elders. And I always look at it from this standpoint. I lost my brother when he was 29 years old. Malik is going to be gone 21 years come this May. And it was due to a hit and run. Somebody came on the highway the wrong way and, crashed head on into my brother, and he was killed. But I share that with you guys because as I've been looking at things, through different spectrums, whether you're looking at the movie Judas and whatever that is, I don't remember the exact title, so forgive me. Or just looking at certain members of the world, Tupac, Biggie. When you look at these gentlemen, 24, 25 years old, my brother was 29 years old. The gentleman in Judas and whatever, he was 21 years old, Fred, whatever his name is. I don't want to say that dismissingly, so I don't want anybody to be upset with me. The point I'm trying to make, because I was having this conversation with a younger person this evening, is the impact that these gentlemen and these people have had on the world has really been in only a 3 to 5 year window, if you really look at their lives. This wasn't stuff that went for 20 years. This wasn't stuff that went for 70 years or 50 years. This was 3 to 5 years that they've had this kind of impact on the world. But I bring that to light because that's what we really have to understand. What is happening in the immediate is what requires our attention, what requires our focus, and what requires us making, and this is a statement that I say to people all the time, you have to make the adjustments to win your championship. Too much of us are looking at what's going on in the lanes alongside of us. That's not your race. You're not running that race. You're running your own race. And once you realize that you're running your own race and you run said race and focus on it, then you don't really have to worry about all the other things going on, because what tends to happen is as you're running your race, the things that are supposed to be congruent with your race or are supposed to happen as far as your race goes, they come to fruition for you. And then you can continue to run your race and still do your outreach and touch the people and things that you're supposed to touch and do. But we have to really understand how that works. And we don't really understand that on a grander scale. Everybody is seemingly, it's me, 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 and mine, 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 when this is whole one big world all together. There's no mine, we all breathing the same air. We're all drinking the same water.
Hold that thought, Amir. I just want to read some of the comments. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Foster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti, and we got my special guest. And it's just been a blessing to chop it up with my brother. I haven't seen him since this pandemic started, so this is a great way to see him anyway. And I know he's doing his thing, him and with my boy Talent. So I'm so happy that he was able to chime in. And I'm going to extend the olive branch. Amir, you are always welcome to come back to Real Talk Chronicles, because once you come on and converse with us, you're always welcome to come back. Whether it's this episode with Kevin and I or me with anybody else, if the topic suits you, then you're more than welcome to chime in. With that being said, let me just read some of the comments that are coming in. There's some good ones. Yeah. Mark said, we have to stay on code, plain and simple. Chuck Richards, who was on the show, shout out Chuck. How you feeling, brother? Let me just make sure I enhance all the things. He says, I'm so tired of people saying that sports should stay out of the politics. Trump had no problem telling Americans to boycott games because the athletes felt a large injustice regarding police brutality and took a knee during the national anthem. That is totally true. I'm a firm believer of that, because the bottom line is, Kevin, you and I talked about that, how you was against that at one point until you saw the police union, the police officers turn their backs on the mayor, and you was like, well, wait a minute, they did it in uniform, so how can we tell somebody not to do something in uniform? And you can elaborate on that real quick before I go to the next statement.
I said it earlier. I when I'm entertained, I want to be entertained, and I want to get my mind out of this world, right? Out of politics things. We all do this. Some of us do this way too much, and it is mentally and physically exhausting. So I like to have my time of, got a TV show, got a sports to watch, and that's all I want. Like, and then I get to zone out and let my brain recharge. Was I initially opposed to Colin Kaepernick taking any? Absolutely, I was. It is, to me, that was time for football, time to be entertained. You understand me? I've been a cop for this many years. To me, it's God and country, right? Like, that's where it comes from. So seeing that for the flag, it bothered me. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it didn't. But I had to, sit back and look at this when Ramos and Lou were murdered in New York City, the two cops who were assassinated together. De Blasio walked into the hospital to go check on them, and all the cops in uniform, just one after another in line, turned their back on de Blasio. And I was for that, and then I had to sit back and realize, I can't be for cops in uniform while working, protesting, men playing football in uniform while working, protesting, and I'm not for it. So I had to be for both. And that changed my opinion of allowing them and saying that, Colin and then anybody wants to take a knee during the game, God bless them, do it. Do I still want to just be entertained? Yeah, but they have their right. They have their statements. And I'm always hoping that men like that and people with power and money and a voice do more than just take the knee and go out and put their money where their mouth is and start working on real change. All right.
Which he has, and he has.
No.
And I say this, I don't have a problem. I think being who I am and growing into the man that I am and still becoming, that I don't have a problem with somebody speaking up, because I know once you speak up, I've learned this in NYPD and any job that I've had, and anybody that has spoken up in any facet, the wheel that squeaks the loudest gets the most attention. But a lot of times you can be ostracized due to the fact that you speak up, because people don't want you to speak up and say what's on your mind or how you feel, because the bottom line is, if you're not built for that, then they're going to take shots at you. And even when you are built for that, a lot of times it's the people around you that will take shots at you. So the bottom line is, I'm so happy that this cancel culture has become so politically correct in some aspects, where they will speak out and say, listen, you know what I'm saying? That's not cool. Like, I feel that. I wish they would go back and reach out to the elders and have more conversation on how to really do things, because some of them are still here. They're still the Jim Browns. They're still the Bill Russells. There are other ones, like even how Chris Long was happy with his son, and he spoke out so eloquently about what his son did with the Philadelphia Eagles. So there are other white activists too, and along, the Jane Fondas. So, it's so funny. I just feel like when people speak out, you're labeled a liberal, or the fact that you don't go along with the masses. It's that get along, go along mentality that we need to get rid of. And if you're about blood that goes through the veins, then you'll do something positive for people. That's where I'm at with it. So I'm glad that athletes speak out, and they got money. I love it when I see. I saw the Yankees that wear the New York City Police Department symbol, NY. When they started wearing Black Lives Matters, and I just saw a plethora of law enforcement denounced them and was all mad. I'll never watch them again, and I don't care. Yo, shut up, punk. You know what I'm saying? Because the bottom line is, and like somebody said, listen, if the word black before lives matter bothers you, then that's the problem. You understand what I'm saying? Because if it's blue lives matter that doesn't bother you, and all lives matter that doesn't bother you, then it's the word black that bothers you. You understand what I'm saying? Because the bottom line is, if you care about all lives matter, then you shouldn't have a problem with Black Lives Matter. And I say that, and I ask anybody to prove me wrong. Give me stats, give me figures. The bottom line is, if you don't care about a black human being getting murdered by law enforcement, and that's what the issue is. It's nothing else. We could talk about black on black crime. We could talk about any other crime. But right now, when we talked about the issue, because law enforcement is supposed to be the parent, the person that saves us and protects us. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, how do we feel about it when we hear about a parent hurting a child? We're like, oh my God, like that's crazy, because the parent is supposed to protect the child. Law enforcement is supposed to protect and serve us. So when law enforcement disrespects us, then we should all have an issue with that, because they are the first line of defense. They are here to protect us from everybody, before the military and before the criminals in the world. So that's what it is, and that's facts. Let me just read some more comments on stuff like that.
Say what? I think,
go ahead. You want to say
that's
something?
the best you've ever explained it or said it.
Can I just add one more thing to
go
Kevin?
Ahead. Sure, go ahead.
Kevin, and like you, I'm like you. I want to be entertained as well. But I think one of the things that we have to realize, especially where sports is concerned, and especially because that's such a large platform here in this country, unfortunately, because the world is set up the way that it is, there are a lot of people who don't have the opportunity to always see everything that's going on in the world. But like you said, if you tune into a baseball game, if you tune into a football game, you tune into a hockey game, or some of these nationally televised sports, here's what happens. You've got everybody's attention. And whether we, think that that's a good thing or a bad thing, that could be debated. But the point is, now you have everybody's attention, at which point you can now shed light or shine a light on something that should at least be a conversation. And that's really where that comes from. It has nothing to do with people trying to stop the show or, like you said, get political. I have the attention of the entire free world at this particular moment when I'm on those stages. And if I can take that moment to then get somebody in rural nowhere to go, oh my goodness, that's really what's going on. Why? Because that's not going on in there, in the part of the world that they are. And that's that's why I said this becomes a situation where we're talking about coming together globally, as Bill stated earlier, and you agreed to. This is about us all coming together. And we can't have us all coming together if we don't even understand that there are some issues that need to be addressed.
Absolutely. I just want to read some more comments. And then, Kevin, I want to go to the thing that we want to talk about, the law enforcement thing. We always try not to go past the time limit, but Amir, hang out with us for a little longer. I just want to read some statements. Let's see, Vanetta. Mark said, Kevin, Muhammad Ali would have said otherwise. Jackie Robinson, Bill Russell, Cap would as well. Vanetta, sometimes you have to lose to win. That's how civil rights profited today. People, Chuck, aren't these people of color on these teams? Don't their family members vote? Absolutely. Vanetta, they are human beings before they are anything else. Sharon, I worked in politics, and Kevin is correct. Politicians will change laws and redistrict communities to harm the other candidate, even if opposing candidates is within the same party. But you can't deny the voter suppression that is happening now. The laws were specifically designed by Republicans to make voting more difficult in Democratic communities across the country. One of the laws passed in Georgia will arrest, convict someone of the misdemeanor if they're seen passing out water to people standing in line to vote. That's crazy wrong. Exactly. Judas and Black Messiah. That was the name of the movie. Sharon said, Colin Kaepernick plays professional football. He can't take off his black skin in the locker room when he leaves the stadium so that you, our fans, can be entertained. It still has to live with the reality. Absolutely. Hold on. Live with the reality of being a black man in America. Colin Kaepernick didn't just use his talent on the field. He used the platform to change the world. Billie Holiday set the tone. Absolutely. Stephanie, what are you guys' thoughts on the doorman being fired for not intervening with the Asian woman who was being beat. Yo, fire his ass. I don't care. Even though it wasn't his job to intervene, and I'll say this real quick, it wasn't his job to intervene, but as a humanitarian, a human being, seeing a woman getting beat and stomped like that was a bad move. I mean, listen, I'm tired of people videotaping. I just got it videotaping. Like I said, I'm always getting stuff. And thank everybody for being my layman newscasters and information of information officers of information. When I see people watching women fight in the street and dudes that are watching it, taping it, talking about, oh, let them fight. Yo, you're just as worse as
Part is the problem.
You're the scum of the earth. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not going to watch two sisters fight in the street. I'm not going to watch two white women fight in the street. I'm not going to watch anybody fight in the street and watch somebody get stomped meaninglessly because one has just won the fight. Let me tell you something. If you ever fought, and this is real as I can get with it, if you've ever fought, to have a real fight is to know that you don't know if somebody's going to break it up. But to fight, and once you win or you're beating the person and you continue to administer so much pain when they are rendered helpless, now you're a monster. You're not just beating. Now, don't get me wrong. I've always told people, you can't tell me how long to kick your ass, but I've never beat anybody while they was helpless and unconscious. That is just humane and barbaric. You understand what I'm saying? And right now, today, we are in a culture that we will pull out our cell phones to videotape it faster than to call 911 and say, somebody come and stop it. We are sick. We're a sick culture. We're not a cancer culture. We're a sick culture. Sharon says, hold on. She says, white people are only ones that have a problem with the word black in Black Lives Matter. When black people were being brutalized, terrorized, and marginalized, white people didn't get a hoot if our lives mattered or not. The minute we organized and protested and used our voice so that we can be seen as human beings, the white folks felt excluded. Get a life. Colin said they did intervene. They assisted her with an attacker left, also flagged down the cops. Okay, so Stephanie, that's what Colin's commented on that. Right now, I just want to get into this other video. Everybody, I want y'all to focus your thoughts on this thing. Of course, this was sent to me. I don't post anything talking about no damn Fox News. Kevin had to tease me on that. I don't post anything. When I sent it to him, he was like, oh my God, you posted something about Fox. So I say all that to say, but I want you to understand what the new laws in New York City are doing right now. And I want your take on it. And we have about another 20 minutes left. And we have Amir Sealy here. And we have, of course, my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. And we have, along with you, we want your take on this. And we'll come back and talk about this at another week. But the bottom line is we just want to have a brief synopsis on this. We're not going to go past 9:30. So go ahead, Kev, play it.
The police. Now liberals have a new way to make it harder for cops to do their jobs. New York City becoming the first in the country to...
My 2G.
Yeah, there you go. Come on, you part of Real Talk Chronicles. You got to step your G game up.
Give me a moment. I'm going to close out a whole bunch of tabs and see if I can. Yeah, so I will say this, before it goes into anything, there are, rules and laws that are being pushed out there, being put on the books. There's consequences. We're trying to get rid of, as we should, bad cops. But I think in the process, we're going to lose
First, it was
a lot of good
defunding
ones.
the police. Now, liberals have a new way to make it harder for cops to do their jobs. New York City becoming the first in the country to end qualified immunity for police officers, which makes it easier to sue cops over claims of misconduct. Jesse, is this the end of police in New York City? And surely other liberal cities will follow suit, even if it's a failure.
Well, it's going that way. You combine this with defund the police, bail reform, and then yanking this qualified immunity away, it's going to kill proactive policing. They're just going to stay in their cars. They're not going to community police. They're not going to walk the beat. They'll just stay back and take less risks. It's going to increase, it's going to decrease foot pursuits and vehicle pursuits. So why would you chase a suspect all around if you know there's going to be an altercation or you could possibly lose your livelihood? People are going to resist arrest more because felons know you get a hotshot lawyer, they take a chance, something happens, you get it on tape, and then they'll file the lawsuit. And it's going to create an industry of frivolous lawsuits, firms set up just to slap multiple police officers with ridiculous charges anytime anybody gets arrested. And it's basically going to incapacitate entire police departments. So they're so frozen, they can't do anything. And ultimately, it's going to hurt communities of color more because they're the ones that need strong police presence, because without it, gangs are going to run wild, traffickers are going to have their say, and it's going to hurt people.
Juan, just this year in New York, year-to-date, murders are up 12%, shootings are up 40%. How is this going to bring crime down?
Well, what we have here is a need for balance, Dagan. I think you need to really root out bad cops, people who are hurting people, abusing people, people who are involved with graft, corruption. And you also need to protect the good cops. And what we have in America is a situation where in too many communities, because of the power of the police unions, much as we talk about the power of teachers union protecting bad teachers, you have powerful police unions that protect and hide abuse by police in this country. And so what you're seeing now is an effort to say, well, you're going to have to be held accountable in some way. It's hard to get around the police union, so maybe the civil courts are the way to do it. I mean, you know, if there's no accountability, it's harder to say, you know what, the cops are on the right side and I stand with the police.
But qualified immunity is not a free pass, Brian, to begin with.
It isn't. I over-prepare for this segment. I only have 30 seconds, but real quick, I talked to a lawyer, I talked to a police commissioner today. You basically want these people, the police, to raise your kids. They're on the street. They're actually trying to give people directions as well as save people from being victims of crimes. And now what you're saying is we're going to haul them into court. Yes, it's true. They'll be defended by the police force, right, by the state. But if you get called into court because you're a good cop and 3 criminals haul you into court, you're going to get fired. And after you get fired, you lost a good cop. So you know what they're going to say? Either I'm not doing it, you're not going to get quality people becoming cops, conscientious people, or number 2 is I'm not going to be aggressive. I'm not going to put my family in jeopardy or my career or my pension. I'm going to sit back here, and unless crime comes to me, I'm not coming to it. And when people come back to work, come back to the city when this pandemic is fully over, they're going to realize it's the Wild West in urban America.
Yeah, but you can't have a gun, so you can't defend yourself if you're just a law-abiding citizen. Not in this city, you can't. Dana?
Well, I should yield my time to Brian because he actually talked to somebody, but I do think in terms of recruitment, you will see just a drastic drop in people who want to become police officers. And that is a real calling. People want to help protect their communities. I have a feeling, Dagan, this will end badly, and it didn't have to be this way. There were many people, especially in the union, police union, that were willing to, let's talk about it. Let's look at some of these reviews. Let's figure this out without having to take such a drastic step.
Well said.
Kevin, I want to come to you first, and then I'll let Amir chime in after. Then I'll follow after him. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster.
I have lots of problems with this one, right? Like the New York City is a state where, for the most part, if you sue the city, you're going to get a few bucks, right? Like it's just the way it works. And people sue the city all the time when they're justified and when they're not. And as a cop, if now the city is no longer backing me and I have to financially back myself, you're really asking a lot out of me, right? Like, you're asking me now to risk my paycheck, my house, my livelihood on anything that goes on. And we've added in this diaphragm law, which makes it a crime. And Bill and I have talked about this a lot, where, the tactics we used, which weren't brutal. You wrestled people, you fought people. That's just the way, sometimes being a cop, you got to fight. You got to use your hands. That these things would now be crimes, which would then open me up to hundreds of lawsuits. I could not do the job. Bill and I could not do the job we did 20 years ago on the street today with these rules. Just couldn't do it. I don't know how this works.
I mean,
we have bad cops.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. We have bad cops.
Sorry, yeah. Mm-hmm.
We have incidents. Look, people, you're watching the trial going on in Minneapolis. He's being tried for murder. There is no stronger law in the nation than murder, right? Murder is the top charge you can really basically get in this. What smaller thing can you add that would have made that guy afraid to do what he did? The answer is nothing, right? Putting in a diaphragm law, a misdemeanor on the books in New York City would not have scared this guy. Murder didn't scare him. Putting in, these things with money ain't going to scare this guy. He murdered somebody. But what you're going to scare is people like Bill, myself, and good cops. And we're seeing that in New York. And I will stand by that. That is the rise in the murder rate and gun violence, is cops have kind of taken a step back. And they're a little bit nervous. I want the bad cops off. Bill wants the bad cops off. I don't think we do enough stings and tests of cops, to see. I don't think we train them properly. I know we don't train them properly. I don't think we vet them properly in the beginning. But there are consequences, and you're going to lose the good ones to me.
Kev, let me ask you a question before I let Amir chime in. I heard everything you said, and I'm not saying I don't agree with you. What I am going to say to you is that, what about the oath? Because what you and I have heard, that people, when it's all about certain things, I took an oath to protect and serve. I put my life on the line. Blah 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 blah. You know the spiel I'm talking about. Now, the system is totally changing. We don't like change. There isn't anybody that likes change. If you worked at a certain store and they told you, or corporate America, they said, if you got to come in, you've been working 8:30 or 9 to 5, and they tell you, you got to come in at 8:30 now. Oh my God. Let's call HR. You understand what I'm saying? Like, what if this changed? Like, if you're a doctor or nurse and they told you, you can't wear your scrubs home, people would lose their damn minds. You don't have wash-up time. So I say all that to say that no one likes change. With that being said, and saying all that, things change. Like, that's why you and I are not officers now. You know what I'm saying? Because, but trust and believe, if we would have signed up and went in the police department now with this change, we conform to what the system is.
We'd have different careers, Bill.
I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that at all. But I'm trying to say is that we still would take the job.
We conform. I agree with you. We'd conform. And the conform would be take that step back.
Exactly. Let me tell you something. I tell anybody what I did in the streets, I would not be working to this day. And I did it within the scope of my job. Like, I never abused anything outside of my job. I did it in the scope of my job. But the cameras would have me fired. You understand what I'm trying to say? Because what they would see was me scrapping. They would see me fighting, throwing combinations, hooking off. You understand what I'm saying? Knocking F is out. in the street, right? My story ain't true unless somebody can co-sign it. But I never touched anybody that didn't swing first. Do you understand what I'm saying, Amir? And
Yes.
Kevin knows what I'm trying to say. So I say all that to say, but a video would say to you, yo, that officer used a different kind of force. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yes.
today, I wouldn't be working because right now, it would have to, but you know what? Maybe I need to check myself and contradict myself because maybe the video would say, well, listen, dude swung at Officer Foster first and he put that combination together. You understand what I'm saying? I was blessed to have a background in fighting.
Yes.
I was blessed and you know, I thank God that I became into law enforcement already into martial arts. You know what I'm saying? Like Kevin will tell you, Kevin's not a formal fighter. They don't teach people how to fight. You learn on the job. You learn with a fat lip. You learn with the scuffle. People react to the. I always say cops are strong as the hours they wear that uniform. Right after that uniform, oh, I don't want to get involved. You know, before they get punched in their mouth, they be telling motherfucker, yo, I'm a cop. Pop, pop, pop. You know what I'm saying? Like certain cats don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's why people get shot. But with this is saying all this and all that's being said, it is a different species out here right now. And I just want to get your take, Amir, and I want to read some comments on what people are saying and what they're saying. Go ahead, Amir. Give me your thought process, brother.
Well, I think, first and foremost, by no stretch of the imagination do I think the average Joe thinks that police officers' job is an easy job. That's first off. Secondly, to the point of that particular video, a couple of things are wrong. And this goes to some stuff that I mentioned earlier. First of all, we have to stop with the narrative. If you notice, 2 or 3 of the people who spoke on that panel, this is a detriment for the urban community. The Black community, stop. When you start using specific wording, when you start putting certain things in the narrative and in the psyche of the people who watch these things, then you sit around and you perceive that everybody in the urban communities or everybody in the Black community, first of all, has a problem with police officers. Secondly, every person who's Black or is urban is hyper and is and that's not the case. So part of the issue is we have to stop putting out these narratives that paint in everybody's head that there's an issue there. Once you stop doing that, then policing probably could be held and done differently because the officers are now not going in with a preconceived notion, oh, I'm going into this community and these things are going to happen. I'm not saying that those things do or don't happen within our community. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if and when you say it enough, though, it becomes your immediate train of thought. So you go into a situation with the energy, the spirit of what you keep hearing. So then you police in that same energy and spirit. Usually that then leads to interaction that isn't comfortable for both sides. So let's get that out the way. The other part of this, to something that both you gentlemen are saying, and we talked about this, just throughout the evening, everything has an evolution. Now, whether we like or hate whatever the evolution is, I said this since this situation happened, pandemic, whatever you want to call it. This was an opportunity for every human being on the planet to do one thing and one thing only. Take a good hard look at themselves in the mirror and then decide who and what they saw in that reflection, whether it needed changing, whether it needed augmentation or whatever, and to come back with a better form of themselves. And this is just the last thing I'll say, because to your point about policing, we say this, or sometimes it's said when you move into certain communities, you ask the community to then do policing to some degree within themselves. We know that this person did something and we need the community to come forward and to say something about this person doing something. That again has to be across the board for everybody. So that means, to your point, Kevin, and to your point, Bill, we need officers to do that for fellow officers. If you know of officers who are not carrying out the oath and doing what they're supposed to be doing, then other officers, blue line, black line, gray line, whatever, you need to speak up and tell the truth. We have to stop with this, it's right for it on one side and it's not the way on the other side. Telling the truth is telling the truth.
Amir, I totally agree with you on the last part of your comment, is that I'm tired of hearing officers talk about the oath that they took and they put their lives on the line, but they don't speak out when they see certain things. I totally agree with you. Kevin, chime in and let me know your thoughts and process, your take on stuff, because everybody out there, first and foremost, and I'm gonna read what Colin wrote right now because it's very important that, like Amir started stating about the people in the narrative of speaking in Fox, persuasive thinking and a lot of things. Like Colin said, he said a bunch of Debbie Downers on Fox. This is happening now because all these years the bad cops were allowed to do whatever they want. Vanetta said, black and white citizens are being killed in the hands of bad police officers, even though based on the population and numbers, more black and brown people are being killed at a higher rate. Let me get back on this. A higher rate. I love it. Let's see, being killed at a higher rate than whites. If a police officer start doing what they are called to do and break the blue iron. Somebody's calling me? Oh, sorry. If police officers start doing what they're called to do and break the blue iron curtain and hold bad officers responsible, accountable, then these wouldn't have died. Too many officers are walking away from wrong when it's plain to see they have done wrong. How is it that Philanto Castile was murdered in front of his family and the officer was told he had a legal firearm and the officer walks? I to this day, Vanetta, I that baffles me, where I tell people all the time, and it bothers me when you look at. Let me equate police department to sports, and Amir can contest to this, and Kevin, you can too, because you played hockey.
Still do.
Exactly. You, to get to certain levels in sports. Now, I played college ball. I played a lot of organized sports. I've competed in martial arts on the not a professional level, but in national circuit. Amir, you played ball. Kevin, you've played, like you said, hockey. You still do. We've all played it in an organized fashion, right? Yes. And when I say organized, that just means rules and regulations, not at the park or not when the park froze over. We've all played it in an organized fashion. With every sport that we played and every team we played on, you had to have a certain skill level to make that team, whether you was the star or you was part of the bench. You understand what I'm saying? The farther I went in basketball, the more I sat on the bench. You know what I'm saying? Because the talent got better. I have no problem saying that. You understand what I'm saying? I graduated the year Mark Jackson, Pearl Washington, Kenny Smith. I graduated with Olden Polynice. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I went from getting cut from the basketball team in high school to playing intramurals. You know what I'm saying? But, when I came out and I played, I got cut from college basketball, But, you get redshirted and games, things like that. But, I played a lot of organized basketball in battlegrounds and street ball and in city leagues. I say all that to say, but the farther I got in my talent skills, and I played against professionals, right? Amir, you played against professionals. You realize you can come from being the man to being the 12th man on the bench, right?
Yes.
But you're still on the team. I say that to say that's not the same case with NYPD or any law enforcement personnel. You take a test in sports, your skill set allows you to be who you are. And when I fought in competition, anybody could sign up to fight, but only the ones that were good got to fight for the trophy, right?
Correct.
And NYPD is the only job that allows you, not NYPD, law enforcement, excuse me, everybody, law enforcement around the world is the only job that you take a test. You can be Joe Bob, you can be Melquan, you can be Jose, you can be Sharon, you can be Lisa, you can be whomever you are, right? You can be Mary Jane. All you have to do is be able to take a test and then pass the physical and the academic requirements to be a law enforcement officer across around the world in 50 states. It does not mean you are made to do the job. It just means that you are capable to pass the test to be on the job. That lies the problem and why we don't have sufficient and accountable officers handling their business, male or female. Because if there was a certain requirement in being a law enforcement officer, like they used to say years ago in state troopers or whomever, you had to be like over 5'10" or 6 feet above to be in law enforcement. Let me tell you something. When you get pulled over by a state trooper right now, there's some of the most intimidating people. When you get pulled over, you still be like, oh shit, state trooper. Even by regular law enforcement, you'd be like, yo, a state trooper pulling me over. You'd be like, oh, hi.
Because we know they'll actually write us. Like a state trooper will write us.
Yes, but I'm just saying
we don't like it either.
They still look good in a uniform. You know, the uniform, they still look good, sleek. Their swag is unprecedented. You know, you got cops coming out eating donuts, ties off. Some are fat, some are skinny, some is too short. Like, you be like, yo, come on, B, are you serious? Some girls' shit is too tight. You know, let me call a spade a spade. But it's a test taker. You know what I'm saying? You're a test taker now. You didn't it's one thing to join the military, but it's a different thing to be a Navy SEAL or a Ranger or a certain thing. That's what the problem lies with law enforcement and why we have the problems we have today. Because anybody can take a test, but not everybody is built for this shit. Kevin, your thoughts on that, and then Amir, your thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Since we're over, I'll go quick. Yeah. Look, Bill, we talk about this a lot. We do not give law enforcement the tools they need. We don't give them the hand-to-hand combat. We don't give them the teaching of history. We don't give them the teaching of the community they're in. We don't give them, lots of tools that they need. And we see the ramifications of it, right? Sometimes we don't understand things that a man of color will perceive different from me than a white man. And it's just fact. It's not comfortable, it's ugly, but you have to be able to discuss these things. Bill and I preach to the choir, on this we preach all the time about the hand-to-hand combat of cops is awful, right? We're not teaching it. And if you can't use your hands and then you don't have that secondary thing that works, well, then it's your gun, right? Because that's the progress of things. And we've seen lots of videos where the hand-to-hand didn't work and it became the gun. And that's not, I can't blame the cops on those things. Who's teaching them? We make jokes about this all the time. Billy just talks about, his fighting career. We're asking cops to step in the ring as a professional fighter. and have no training.
That's
Where does
right.
this work? In what profession does this work? Zero. Absolutely none. So it's, to me, it's about funding the police and changing it and flipping it on its head a little bit. It is the right thing. I think this other stuff we're going into, these laws and rules, we're in the wrong, we're fighting the wrong battle. I do agree with you, Amir. What the Fox News contributors said wasn't helpful, right? They could have, I can bash this law till I'm blue in the face, but I don't have to bring anything to do with race and anything into it. I'm just telling you the way it is. It hurts me. It hurts Bill. Neither one of us could be the cops we were yesterday, today with these rules. Just impossible. That's it.
To both you gentlemen's point, I think that in a nutshell again is really why we're having such a standoff on all fronts about everything, is because the ideologies of old, in some cases, like I said, don't apply to where we are now. They just don't apply. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It's not black and white. It just doesn't apply to what you're saying about training. Like you said, you just have to take a test and pass the test. That doesn't include any and all things that may have happened to you growing up, because unfortunately you run into officers who you become officers, just like in some cases, joining a fraternity. You're bad now because you're part of a fraternity. I've known you my whole life. You were never a tough guy. And that's, again, this is not picking on anybody. This is just the mentality. You were never a tough guy. But now, because you're part of this makes you something or somebody. We have to get back to understanding that you're somebody, whether you're a law enforcement officer, you work in the donut shop, you work in a garage, you sweep the sweep the streets, of New York City. It doesn't make a difference. That's the problem. People have taken whatever situation they're in, and you feel as though that actually makes you somebody or something. Working in corporate America, I've been in corporate America for 30 years. You know how many bosses I've had to have this conversation with? You're a boss inside this building, but if we go 2 blocks this way, 2 blocks that way, 2 blocks that way, you become nobody. Mm-hmm. I'm a mere chili no matter where I go.
Hey, yo, let me tell you something, Amir. Let me just interject real quick. It's like watching Batman, and when Bane said to that dude, he said, yo, listen. He said, you think because you pay me, you can yell at me and disrespect me? I'm paraphrasing. I thought that was so poetic justice, letting it be known, like, yo, just because you sign a check, you're not that dude. Let me tell you something. I've worked in NYPD, and I've had bosses. I heard, as you go up the rank, I hear people talk about, oh, he yelled at me, he did this. Let me tell you something. I've had no boss yell at me in this job, because the bottom line is, yo, you wasn't paid enough to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, you might have told me what to do, and you may not have liked me for whatever the thing, but you wasn't yelling at me, because the bottom line is we both went to the bathroom and we both urinated the same way. And listen, don't get this shit twisted. But that's the way I carried myself, and that's the way I didn't let this job consume me like that. Amir, I'm going to ask you to come back on the 21st of this month. If you can, and you're more than welcome to come with talent, because I know that's your co-host, but you're more to come by yourself. But you know what I'm saying? I want to invite you back, because I want to finish this conversation, because we've definitely gone beyond the time limits that I want to for our throats and our conversations. But listen, like, I just want to finish what Colin said, and I want us to close out with some positive affirmation. But listen, check your schedule, Amir, on the 21st.
Okay.
Colin said, and this is so true, and I have to agree with him. Kevin, comment on this too. Colin said, NYPD are some of the sloppiest dressed law enforcement officers that I've ever seen. They are.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something.
I can't fight that one.
No, let me tell you something. Like I've seen law enforcement with NYPD talk about, they talking about hiring people that got misdemeanors and shit like that. Yo, listen, let's talk about hiring some people that got some heart to do this job, man. You know what I'm saying? Like some real inner city people. With that being said, listen, Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. This is a beautiful segment. We've been rocking. We've rocked so much. We went past the time that I wanted to. Everybody, I'm inviting Amir Sealy back. I hope he comes back on the 21st. Mark, thank you. Great show. Kevin, you know, we chop it up all the time. Amir, give us some positive affirmation before you leave. Just some love to the people. I hope you can come back on the 21st. You and I will talk sidebar after.
Okay. Yes.
And then Kevin, go ahead. Go ahead, Amir. Give us some love.
Again, I just encourage everybody, first and foremost, please keep tuning into this, wonderful show, because both Bill and Kevin give us, so much to think about, and really give us an opportunity to, see the world from, obviously 2 different perspectives. And that is so imperative. We have to do, much more listening and not so much talking. And then last, I'll just say this, as I said earlier, please make the adjustments to win your championship. That's the best thing that I could tell people. No matter what it is, no matter where you are in life, no matter what you see your life becoming or wanting it to be, make the adjustments that help you win your championship. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
Kev.
First off, thank you, Amir. It was a pleasure tonight meeting you, spending some time with you. I wish you well on everything you do.
Thank you.
2 quick things, I think, for tonight. Be part of the change. Change is small, change is large. Be part of it. Listen to the other side. Make a friend, talk, even just check out the other news a little bit. You gotta hear the other side.
Absolutely.
You may miss something, you may catch something new. You may be able to, by hearing the other side, even make your argument stronger, because then you can use the words the other side is using, so they'll hear you. All right? The other part of things I think everybody should do: take a break, get off social media, have whatever your holy day is for you. Have your holy day. It doesn't have to be religious. Just have your holy day, and get out of this. Get out of the social media world. Talk to your neighbor. Call somebody on the phone. Walk out on the street and say hi. Go for a bike ride. Go for a hike. Bill knows me. I love to go out and go for hikes and just get away from it all.
Absolutely.
That's it. Good luck. Thank you, everybody, tonight. Share it.
Exactly. Tell him, Kevin. Hey, I just want to read Vanetta's comment, which was so nice. And thank you all for tuning in and chiming in. Vanetta said, I tuned in almost 2 months after you started, and I love the show. When I can make it on, and hopefully one day I can make Vanetta, yes, you are welcome one day when you can come on. Let me know. You're always welcome. You're avid supporter. Like Colin said, listen to comprehend, not to answer. Absolutely. Everybody, listen, I appreciate you all. Thank you. Listen. It's one thing to speak, to to talk. It's another thing to listen to hear. You know what I'm saying? Real Talk Chronicles is about individuals giving their personal feelings, articulating it, not sounding like they don't know what they're talking about. Share it, like it, subscribe to it, be a part of it. You're all welcome. Anybody is welcome to be a part of Real Talk Chronicles. All you got to do is just say, yo, Bill, Kevin, I want to be a part of it. Malika, whomever, you're more than welcome. To make change, you have to be willing to be change. And it starts with you. To speak out, the bullseye is going to be on your back. Are you willing to take those shots? But the bottom line is, I was built, my parents made me this way. I damn sure know Amir has been made that way. Kevin has definitely shown that he's willing to take that shot. You know what I'm saying? So everybody, please tune in. Real Talk Chronicles, Mondays, Wednesdays. Listen, if you need a website, my beautiful other half is in the back. She does websites. Support a woman doing her thing. Let me tell you something. Her pedigree is bananas. The first Monday of the month, we have Assemblyman Al Taylor. The second Monday, right now, I'm kind of freelancing with that. Sometimes Malika. I might bring my uncle in. I might just come solo. It depends right now. The third Monday of the month, we have Allison Williams, the first lady of Def Jam. She comes in and talks about stuff. The fourth Monday of the month, we have the spiritual walk with Pastor Graves. And every Wednesday, we have Kevin Branzetti and I, we touch on topics that a lot of people don't want to converse about. So thank you all for chiming in. Sorry that we went past the hours, but good conversation can never be cut short. So this is what Real Talk is all about. Real Talk Chronicles. We see you, love you, respect you, appreciate you, everybody.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good night.
Appreciate you. Good night.
Stay on a second.